Chapter 2250. Behind the misty rain pavilion, on the surface of the vast mirror lake, two figures, one in front and one behind, walked on the surface of the water as if they were walking on flat ground. One of them held a white paper fan in his hand. His demeanor was elegant and dignified, as if he was alive. He appeared somewhat weak, like a pale-faced scholar. The other person was dressed in white. His expression was calm as he strolled leisurely in the water. Needless to say, the leader was the heavenly book scholar. Naturally, the other person was Xiao Chen. After passing through a group of blooming water lilies and a few more ups and downs in the misty water, the heavenly book scholar fell like a meteor, landing firmly on a lone boat. Then, he turned his head to look at Xiao Chen and made an inviting gesture. The sky was clear and blue, the clouds were light and the wind was gentle. It was almost noon. The mist was hazy, and a lone boat was in the middle of the river. Xiao Chen glanced at it and didn't suspect anything else. Like a leaf falling from a pine tree, he landed steadily on the bow of the ship. Looking forward, there was already a table of simple dishes and wine in the cabin. The small space could only accommodate 2 or 3 people. The person on the other side was dressed in embroidered clothes. He had a handsome and masculine appearance, and there was a faint murderous aura between his brows. No matter how hard he tried to hide it, he could not hide the murderous aura that made people's hearts palpitate. This was a prince who had killed many people. I have long heard of Lord Zhao's name. I finally get to meet you today. Please, take a seat. The 9th prince smiled faintly and invited Xiao Chen to sit down. Greetings, 9th prince. After cupping his hands in greeting, Xiao Chen lifted the hem of his robes and slowly sat down. The 9th prince Wang Yan frequently guarded the borders, resisting the abyssal underworld's demons and the Blood Moon dynasty, a great threat. Xiao Chen didn't know much about him. He only had some understanding of him. He didn't know anything about his background or personality. Wang Yan was not surprised that Xiao Chen recognized him. After a simple understanding and 3 cups of wine, Wang Yan said, Lord Xiao has the strongest spirit in the world, heartburn. I wonder if the simple wine here is to your liking. Xiao Chen put down his cup and said, drinking also depends on one's state of mind. No matter how good the wine was, it was impossible to taste it. For example, right now, the small boat in the middle of the lake and the boundless mist. Although there is an artistic conception, it is not the time to drink. Wang Yan exchanged looks with the heavenly book scholar. Then, he smiled and said, Lord Xiao is a straightforward person. I will not waste any more words. It was my idea that Chang Ji asked you to buy the key to the immortal palace last time. This time, I personally came to ask if Lord Xiao has the intention to make a move. So, the heavenly book scholar's name is Chang Ji, Xiao Chen thought to himself. Then, he put down his wine cup and smiled. Not selling. As expected. Since you are not selling the ethereal palace key, I wonder if Lord Xiao is willing to sell it? Wang Yan's expression did not change as he looked at Xiao Chen. The lake rippled and the boat swayed. Xiao Chen's heart was as calm as still water. He did not move at all. He said calmly, What do you mean? The 9th prince wants you to help him fight for the throne. Haven't you always wanted to know where the immortal palace will appear in the prophecy? I can tell you, only those who help a prince fight for the throne are qualified to know. Aside from that, there is no other way, the heavenly book scholar said from the side. Then, he looked at Xiao Chen, observing his expression. However, the heavenly book scholar appeared somewhat disappointed. He could not make out anything from Xiao Chen's expression. It seemed like Xiao Chen had guessed it long ago. I know all this. Tell me something I don't know. The heavenly book scholar frowned slightly when he heard that. Then, he looked at the 9th prince. After the 9th prince nodded, the heavenly book scholar said, All right. During the succession race, all the princes will enter the ancient Yan Emperor tomb. This is a secret realm of the royal clan. It is also the place where the Yanwu dynasty's luck and dragon veins are stored. Aside from the tombs of the past Yan emperors, there are also all sorts of fortuitous encounters and inheritances. However, many of the places in this secret realm are forbidden lands. Even the royal clan has not explored all of them. This time, the various diviners who read fate and calculate luck all agree that the immortal palace might appear in the ancient Yan emperor tomb. However, as you know, this prophecy has spread thousands of times in the past 100,000 years. You can determine its truth by yourself. Xiaochen thought to himself. After a while, he asked, only the royal clan controls the entrance to the ancient Yan emperor tomb, and the tomb opens only during the succession race? The Heavenly Book scholar said, that's right. Even the imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs are qualified to enter only after the late emperor passes away. You need to work with a prince to be qualified to enter. Otherwise, the immortal palace key would be wasted in your hands. The ninth prince continued, the succession race is a test for all the princes to enter the ancient Yan emperor tomb. The final victor will be the crown prince. Honestly speaking, I do not care about the crown prince position. I am just worried. If the immortal palace really appears, the wings of time will fall into the hands of the Xuewu dynasty. Finding this strange, Xiaochen asked, the Xuewu dynasty's people can enter the ancient Yan emperor tomb? Previously, not. However, it is hard to say after the wedding in the imperial capital, the ninth prince said indifferently. The ninth prince said indifferently. This wedding was clearly referring to the wedding of the first prince that had spread across the world. Speaking of which, Xiaochen, what do you think of this wedding? The Heavenly Book scholar asked as he looked at Xiaochen. There seemed to be a deeper meaning to his question. Xiaochen's expression did not change as he replied, what opinion can I have? Is that so? In that case, it looks like you still do not know about the recent events. Aside from the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarch, there is another person presiding over this wedding. The current clan head of the Sword God's noble clan, Su Qiming, is also the father of the Misty Rain Pavilion's pavilion master. The Heavenly Book scholar explained calmly and unhurriedly. This stunned Xiaochen. This meant that the first prince had gained another great helper. Is the transcendent strongest noble clan of the dynasty finally taking a side in this succession race? No wonder the Heavenly Book scholar asked for my opinion. I thought that the other party already knew some of my plans. The ninth prince showed a somewhat helpless expression as he said, the noble clans, the sects, and the feudal lords are the three strongest factions in the dynasty. The Su family was the head of the world's aristocratic families. Regardless of his motives for choosing his eldest brother, it would definitely affect the choices of many aristocratic families. After this wedding, eldest brother has already taken the lead in the battle for the position of crown prince, breaking the original balance between the three. Xiaochen's thoughts raced as he thought of something. He asked, the ninth prince mentioned earlier that the Xuewu dynasty's demons can enter the ancient Yan emperor tomb after the wedding. Does that have anything to do with this? The ninth prince laughed softly and said, Big brother obtained such a strong support and seized the initiative, leaving 8th brother and 13th brother far behind. To obtain so many benefits, one naturally has to pay the price. It's just that the price paid is a little too great. If one is not careful, one will fall into their own trap. Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Xiaochen pondered and pointed out the crux of the problem. That's right. In reality, the Azure Lotus Church is behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. Right now, the ancestral court is in the Xuewu dynasty. Back then, the Azure Lotus Church fought with the Buddhist sect. After they lost, they were labeled an evil sect. They could only go far away to avoid trouble. Instead, they developed in the Xuewu dynasty. However, the world does not know that the Azure Lotus Church's greatest business has always been in the Yanwu dynasty. Such a secret shocked Xiaochen. To think that the Azure Lotus Church was behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance. The Azure Lotus Church, this was not Xiaochen's first time hearing about this. Back in the fiendish demon battlefield in the Grave Sea Cluster, he had a karmic connection with the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakia. The Nirmanakia was different from the clone. The Nirmanakaya had its own thoughts and character, able to think subjectively. No matter how strong the clone was or how intelligent it was, it could not think subjectively, much less give birth to a new personality. However, there were similarities between the two. Be it the Nirmanakaya or the clone, they were both under the control of the main body. Everything that happened between Xiao Chen and the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakaya back then was under the observation of the main body. The other party knew everything. However, the main body was the main body, and the Nirmanakaya was the Nirmanakaya. The two were like two different people. Back then, after the Azure Lotus Holy Daughters Nirmanakaya spoke, her physical body exploded, turning into a strand of nine-colored spirituality that vanished. Since the royal court knows that the Azure Lotus Church is behind the Pleasure Quarter Alliance, why did they not eradicate the Pleasure Quarter Alliance? Xiao Chen asked out of curiosity, startling awake from his memories. The Heavenly Book scholar smiled and said, Xiao Chen, given your intelligence, you just need to think about it to figure out the reason. The Hidden Spirit Temple. Inspiration flashed in Xiao Chen's mind as he said seriously. The Heavenly Book scholar nodded and said, that's right. The royal court did indeed think of using the Pleasure Quarter Alliance to keep the Hidden Spirit Temple in check. However, whether it would be effective or not is another matter. Another reason is that the Pleasure Quarter Alliance possesses deep accumulations. It is practically impossible to eradicate it completely. Furthermore, it has never shown any enmity to the dynasty, so we just let it exist. The ninth prince said, this time is somewhat different. For the sake of the ethereal immortal palace, the Shuowu dynasty will definitely use the Azure Lotus Church as a connection to enter the ancient Yan Emperor tomb. The first prince can't be that stupid, right? Wang Yan said coldly, he took benefits from others. Naturally, he has to pay the price. He is not stupid either. He just thinks himself clever and wants to take a gamble. The prophecies have been false thousands of times. As long as this time is also false, it does not matter to him. After saying so much, I have said everything I know. Lord Xiao, you can see my sincerity. What do you think? Are you willing to help me seize the throne and enter the ancient Yan Emperor tomb together? Xiao Chen replied softly, I'll give you an answer 3 days later. Sure. This is such a major matter. If you agree to it now, I will feel suspicious. Wang Yan smiled faintly and stood up to send the three off. The three walked to the bow of the warship. Just as they were about to say their goodbyes, the lake's surface turned scarlet at some point in time, and many black corpses floated on the water. Wang Yan's expression immediately changed drastically. These are my secret guards. Chapter 2251. Blood flowed in the clear lake water. Clearly, these ninth prince's secret guards had died not long ago. The Heavenly Book scholar and the ninth prince Wang Yan showed somewhat shocked expressions. Unexpectedly, someone in the imperial capital dared to attack a prince. The three stood at the bow, not daring to act rashly. The ninth prince had killed so many elite secret guards right under their noses. At the very least, he was a great perfection sovereign emperor. Furthermore, his water Dao domain was very strong. As Wang Yan looked at the corpses of the secret guards soaking in the water, his expression turned increasingly unsightly. Wang Yan could no longer suppress the killing qi on his face, spreading it out wildly. Boom! When the horrifying killing qi burst out, the entire lake became like the sea. Waves roared and surged endlessly. Xiao Chen felt slightly startled. The ninth prince's strength somewhat surprised him. Just his killing qi was already so terrifying. This person must have taken the lead when killing enemies outside, leading the charge. Countless demonic Dao cultivators and abyssal underworld cultivators must have died at the ninth prince's hands. Otherwise, he would not have materialized such a vast killing qi. Xiao Chen vaguely saw a shadow of himself from back then in the ninth prince. The ninth prince walked the massacre Dao. If one was not careful on this Dao, one would enter berserking qi deviation and fall into an abyss of eternal damnation. However, the ninth prince had the dynasty's luck, so he was in a much better state than Xiao Chen back then. The dynasty's luck could suppress and refine this killing qi. However, the ninth prince's killing qi could also be used to refine the dynasty's luck. It all depended on the ninth prince's choice. I want to see who dares to kill my people in Yen City. The ninth prince raged. The lake water surged, looking like it would overturn the entire lake. Xiao Chen felt slightly surprised. With such a large lineup, it should have startled the outside world long ago. The Misty Rain Pavilion was located in the bustling area of the imperial capital. Any disturbance would startle the entire imperial capital. The city guards would rush over in 10 breaths. However, there was no movement at all. It was like the three were isolated in another world. Something's wrong, Xiao Chen said to the Heavenly Book Scholar. Then, he activated the alloy dragon armor. Purple dragon motifs adorned the silver armor, and a thunder dragon reverse scale pendant hung on his forehead. His aura immediately changed drastically. The Heavenly Book Scholar looked at the sky and said, "Something is wrong. We are already in someone else's small world. Pocket world." One could materialize a small world only after reaching the 10th layer of the Dao domain. This was somewhat problematic. Puff! As soon as he finished speaking, a bloody mouth appeared in the water and swallowed the entire boat with a bang. So. The three of them moved as fast as lightning, dodging to the side and looking back. In the lake below, a snow-white snake with a single horn on its head appeared. Vaguely, there was a trace of divine might. This was a huge snake with the bloodline of the divine beast Bays. Snow python. This stunned the Heavenly Book Scholar. He recognized this snake. This was a ferocious beast that only the White Marsh Beast Empire's royal court possessed. A person stood on the snake's body. This person wore a straw raincoat and a conical bamboo hat. He held a fishing rod in his hand. This person exuded a mysterious and unfathomable aura, displaying the horrifying cultivation of a six-vein sovereign emperor. Doubt flashed in Xiao Chen's eyes. However, before he could think, that person swung the fishing rod in his hand. Whoosh! 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 The fishing line seemed to have a life of its own, twisting in the air and drawing a curved path as it tried to entangle the three. Xiao Chen and the other two did not dare to be careless. Their figures flashed as they dodged the fishing line. However, this person was too strong. The fishing line was transparent and strangely fast. In mere moments, the fishing line wrapped around the leg of the Heavenly Book Scholar, who was the weakest among the three. Whoosh! 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 The fishing line continuously spun around the Heavenly Book Scholar's leg, extending up and deep into his flesh. Blood instantly covered his entire leg. The fishing line was extremely thin and boundlessly sharp. It looked like it would cut off the Heavenly Book Scholar's leg. The Heavenly Book Scholar snorted coldly. Then, he opened the folding fan in his hand, and a vast Confucian righteous chi spread out from his body. Ka-xie! Ka-xie! The fishing line, which was originally only wrapped around Xiao Chen's leg, instantly bounced off. Then, he quickly extricated himself and fled far away. The straw raincoat-clad man on the snow python did not show any change in expression. He continued to swing the fishing rod in his hand. Immediately, the fishing line extended infinitely in the air, turning into transparent ribbons dancing in the air. Xiao Chen and the other two felt somewhat sullen. They could not bring out their strength and could only evade. This fishing rod was simply too strange. They could not do anything about it, they could only dodge. If they got careless and got entangled in the fishing line, that would be the Heavenly Book Scholar's fate. At this moment, the most important thing was not to let this affect their mental states. The Ninth Prince and the Heavenly Book Scholar felt somewhat frustrated. With their strength restricted, they could only dodge helplessly. This continuously affected their mental states. Xiao Chen's heart remained as calm as still water as he calmly observed the straw raincoat-clad man's actions. He showed a grave expression, not daring to be careless. A six-veined sovereign emperor. Just this cultivation alone placed heavy pressure on Xiao Chen, making it difficult to defeat him. At the same time, Xiao Chen had several doubts in his heart. Were there no older generation experts by the ninth prince's side, guarding him in secret? Or were they already pinned down? Xiao Chen did not know if the expert who covered the small world in this mirror lake was the straw raincoat-clad man or another expert. Take the bait willingly. The straw raincoat-clad man said softly as Xiao Chen kept guessing. Then, he quickly pulled in the fishing line and sank it to the bottom. Mysterious ripples immediately appeared on the water's surface. The fishing line seemed to sink into another space and time, looking incredibly strange. In the next moment, a loud bang rang out, and a ferocious beast was actually reeled in. Fishing alone in the cold river snow, not returning to sleep when the moon sets, the straw raincoat-clad man said softly. Under the conical bamboo hat, a smile appeared on the straw raincoat-clad man's face. With the help of a slender fishing line, the huge ferocious beast was easily pulled up and sent flying towards the three. Even if a strong wind blows in the night, the shore is where my heart is at peace. Beyond the chilly wind and cold shadows, a lone boat accompanied by grass. As the straw raincoat-clad man chanted, not only did the ferocious beast get pulled out, but it also flew around in the air, making the three miserable. All sorts of mysterious phenomena appeared. The night is still, the water is cold, and the fish do not feed. The boat is empty, and the bright moon returns. Boom! This was even more horrifying. A bright moon actually fell out of the water. As it slowly rose, it startled the three. Be careful. I know who he is. He is the White Marsh Beast Empire's imperial teacher, Sikong Shu. Xiao Chen showed a grave expression. Before this straw raincoat-clad man brought out his full strength, he had already forced the three into a dangerous situation. Now that this bright moon fell out, it was even more flabbergasting. Just at this moment, a strand of extremely strong soul energy silently shot towards Xiao Chen like a sharp arrow. Dang! When the soul energy struck the reverse scale on Xiao Chen's forehead, it gave off a crisp sound. A ferocious dragon roared and scattered this strand of soul energy. Xiao Chen's expression immediately changed drastically, as this soul energy attack targeted only him. The ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar were not affected. In the end, this assassination was actually aimed at him. Rage. When Xiao Chen understood, he immediately became enraged and snorted coldly. The divine energy in Xiao Chen's body flowed in reverse, turning into demonic qi divine energy. He activated the demonic cloud heaven swallowing art, and demonic qi immediately surged out of his body. The Xuewu dynasty's sacred tool, the Scarlet Moon, instantly activated. A scarlet moon rose behind Xiao Chen. Then, he faced his palms to the sky and held up this vast scarlet moon. Then, he smashed it down. Bang! The two bright moons collided. The bright moon that the straw raincoat-clad man held up shattered amid a loud bang. Xiao Chen used the Xuewu dynasty's sacred tool, the Scarlet Moon, to smash it into smithereens. However, the fishing line took advantage of this opportunity to wrap around Xiao Chen's ankle before extending upwards. In an instant, it firmly bound Xiao Chen. However, the sharp fishing line that could cut into the heavenly book scholar's flesh could not penetrate Xiao Chen's body at all. It could not penetrate Xiao Chen's body at all. He had the alloy dragon armor protecting him, so it could not injure him at all. Whoosh! The straw raincoat-clad man stared at Xiao Chen from under the conical bamboo hat on the snow python, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. The straw raincoat-clad man pulled ferociously, trying to pull Xiao Chen over. However, just as the straw raincoat-clad man was about to pull, electricity jolted his hand, nearly causing the fishing rod to fall from his grasp. A horrifying bolt of electricity moved along the fishing line, crackling as it flashed. With the support of the alloy dragon armor, the straw raincoat-clad man's 4th layer Thunder Dao domain reached the might of a 5th layer Thunder Dao domain. Even a six-vein sovereign emperor would suffer significant injuries from this lightning strike, which looked pleasing to the eye. Whoosh! The man in the woven rush raincoat sitting on the snow python gave a muffled groan. He, who had always been like an old fisherman, stood up for the first time. Boom! The instant the straw raincoat-clad man stood up, the horrifying aura of a six-vein sovereign emperor surged out together with the might of his divine seal. The ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar were currently dealing with the attacks of various ferocious beasts and mysterious phenomena. When they saw this scene, they were greatly startled. This was because the straw raincoat-clad old man's sovereign emperor aura headed for Xiaochen. The two of them were only slightly affected. The straw raincoat-clad old man wanted to use the horrifying might and pressure of a six-vein sovereign emperor to shatter Xiaochen's Thunder Dao domain. However, Xiaochen smiled coldly. The royal blue dragon bloodline in his body surged endlessly like a surging river. He did not show any fear when facing this aura. The White Marsh Beast Empire's royal tutor already came out. Where are the experts of my divine dragon empire? Why are you still not coming out? Xiaochen shouted coldly. Then, he pressed his tongue against the roof of his mouth and used the three-vein sovereign emperor's soul energy that he inherited from an ancient demonic sovereign to detonate the divine lightning talisman in the depths of his soul pool. Immediately, thunderous sounds rumbled endlessly, shaking the entire small world. Up until now, Xiaochen could only use the Divine Lightning Eye to activate the Divine Lightning Talisman that the immortal epic's Thunder ancestor left behind. However, the situation forced him to use his three-vein Sovereign Emperor's soul energy and take the risk to activate it. Rumble. The Divine Lightning Talisman instantly erupted. The immortal epic's Thunder ancestor's talisman burst out with a frightening might of Divine Lightning. Xiaochen's every word became thunderous, turning into the sound of divine lightning rampaging in this small world. Electric light flickered all over his body. As the demonic chi driven by the demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art's demonic cloud heaven-swallowing art, Xiaochen became as terrifying as an ancient thunder god punishing everything in the world. Chapter 2252. Rumble. Thunder boomed endlessly. The explosive power of a three-vein sovereign emperor detonating the divine lightning talisman surpassed Xiaochen's expectations. The divine lightning talisman even went somewhat out of control. Just the sound waves shook the small world. Cracks. A flaw appeared in the small world. The heavenly book scholar looked up and discovered some cracks in the sky flickering with electric light. The heavenly book scholar's eyes immediately lit up with joy. As long as he broke this small world, all the danger would be resolved. At that time, no matter how strong Sikong Shu was, he would not dare to linger. Otherwise, it would be problematic if the city guards captured him. When the straw raincoat-clad man on the snow python saw Xiaochen's might, he felt slightly shocked. What surprised the straw raincoat-clad man even more was that Xiaochen had guessed that there were other people here. Even at death's door, you still dare to be so arrogant. Xiaochen, you really don't know what's good for you. Whoosh! Thunder rumbled as the lake water parted. A silver-haired old man emerged like a dragon emerging from the sea. He held a white pearl in his hand as he leaped out and looked coldly at Xiaochen. Xiaochen could clearly sense dragon might in the aura that this old man gave off. If it were someone familiar with the dragon race, they would be able to tell that this was an expert of the silver dragon bloodline of the six-colored divine dragons. A strange look flashed in the heavenly book scholar's eyes. He whispered to the ninth prince, "This person is the Silver Dragon Palace's palace master, the clan head of the Silver Dragon bloodline. He is conferred the title of king in the divine dragon empire, the Silver Dragon King." What? A surprised expression immediately flashed in Wang Yan's eyes. The Silver Dragon King. To think that the clan head of the Divine Dragon Empire disregarded his status and came to Yan City to assassinate Xiaochen. How much trouble did this Xiaochen cause in the Divine Dragon Empire? Xiaochen looked at the silver-haired old man with a cold gaze. Then, he said sullenly, "Since when did the Silver Dragon Palace become the Golden Dragon bloodline's lackey?" The silver-haired old man retorted coldly, "You have a sharp tongue. If you are sensible, you will return to the Divine Dragon Empire with this king and meet the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor. Otherwise, you will be disobeying orders. Don't blame me for being merciless. The silver-haired old man saw that Xiao Qin had been tied up by the fishing line of the man in the woven rush raincoat. They only treated him as a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. They didn't give him any face at all. Xiao Qin laughed and said, "What a good, disobeying orders. Old thing, listen up. I am now a rank 6 envoy inspector of the Heavenly Alliance. Why do I need to listen to the Purple Gold Dragon Emperor's orders? It seems like you intend to resist to the end. Fine, then I won't waste my breath on you." The purpose of these two people was to assassinate Xiao Qin, so they had never thought of reasoning with him. Seeing that Xiao Qin did not comply, the Silver Dragon King's murderous intent soared. "Stop!" The ninth prince showed a sullen expression as he said, "One of them is the White Marsh Beast Empire's royal teacher, and the other is the Divine Dragon Empire's Silver Dragon King. However, this is the Yanwu dynasty. To think that they do not care about this prince at all, killing my secret guards on a whim." The man in the woven rush raincoat said calmly, "The two of us were only defending ourselves. The prince's secret guards discovered us and wanted to attack us. I believe the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs will understand. If we offended the prince in any way, we will personally apologize to the Yan Emperor." The moment Wang Yan said that, his face turned green with anger. Even if he was not favored by his imperial father, Wang Yan would not dare to offend him. Even if he was not favored by his father, he was still a prince. To think that these two did not give him any face at all, only saying that they would apologize to the Yan Emperor, completely ignoring him. This humble one is following orders to capture the dragon race criminals. I believe that the prince will not shield me on purpose. Otherwise, if I accidentally injure your highness, the Silver Dragon King smiled coldly. His tone showed that he did not care about the ninth prince at all. In the Silver Dragon King's opinion, this ninth prince was just a child of the younger generation, not qualified to stand on equal footing with him. Furthermore, the two of them came prepared. They knew this ninth prince very well. The person behind them even intended to teach this ninth prince a lesson, making things difficult for him. Hence, the two of them did not fear the ninth prince at all. "I, Wang Yan, will interfere in today's matter. If you have the guts, then kill me." Wang Yan raged. His 10 fingers moved rapidly, forming hand seals. In that instant, his 10 fingers flickered with light, and space trembled. The image of the Yan Imperial sword appeared in front of the ninth prince. However, it was different from the Yan Imperial sword that Xiao Qin had seen before. Aside from containing the vast holy might of the dynasty, this sword image also contained an incredibly horrifying killing chi. Wang Yan had heard that the royal clan disciples could summon the sword image of the Yan Imperial sword. Then, they could use this sword image to forge their own life's secret treasure. In the future, when they ascended to the throne and became the Yan Emperor, they could immediately grasp the Yan Imperial sword. At that time, their life's secret treasure would merge with the Yan Imperial sword, allowing them to brand the Yan Imperial sword with their own mark. Xiao Qin felt somewhat surprised. Unexpectedly, the ninth prince was willing to take out the life's secret treasure he refined for him in a fit of rage. If this secret treasure was damaged, not only would it harm Xiao Qin, but it would also affect his luck in the dynasty. "Sikong, a crack has already appeared in this pocket dimension. We can't delay any longer." The Silver Dragon King frowned slightly as he sent a voice projection. He had not reached the 10th layer Water Dao domain. This small world was formed by the pearl in Xiao Chen's hand and his Water Dao domain. Once a flaw appeared, it would be difficult to mend it. "Understood. I'll stall the ninth prince, and you go kill them. As an outsider, it is not convenient for me to kill a sinner of your dragon clan." The man in the raincoat said indifferently. The Silver Dragon King cursed in his heart. This Sikong Shu has not been putting in much effort. They were waiting for him to show up and kill Xiao Qin. Forget it, none of this is important. What's important is that Xiao Qin must die today. Kacha. However, just as the straw raincoat-clad man prepared to restrain the ninth prince, Xiaoqian suddenly drew his tyrant saber. The fishing line wrapped around Xiaoqian suddenly snapped. With a slight tremble, the fishing line binding Xiaoqian broke free. Puchi! Caught off guard, blood leaked out of a corner of Sikongshu's lips. He exclaimed, "My fishing line!" The seemingly unremarkable fishing line was actually incredibly sharp. Small perfection sovereign emperor. Small perfection sovereign emperors could not resist this fishing line at all. Even great perfection sovereign emperors could forget about struggling free. Even soul tools could not break it. Sikongshu had gathered all the divine materials in the world and used his own soul blood to refine it for hundreds of years. However, Xiaoqian managed to break it with one saber strike today. Most importantly, this saber could not be considered a soul tool. That's impossible. Even a medial-grade soul tool cannot break my fishing line. Disbelief flashed in the straw raincoat-clad man's eyes. He could not accept this at all. In reality, it was as he said. With just the tyrant saber, Xiaoqian would find it very difficult to break this fishing line. However, after Xiaoqian used his soul energy to activate the divine lightning talisman in his soul pool, he continuously tried to use the power of the divine lightning to shake the fishing line. The ninth prince had bought Xiaoqian a lot of time. By the time the tyrant saber made its move, the divine lightning had already shaken the fishing line. The tyrant saber easily chopped down again. I can't care so much anymore. When the Silver Dragon King saw Sikongshu in a daze, he snorted coldly and charged over alone. The Silver Dragon King held the treasure pearl with his left hand, and his right hand turned into a palm saber as he chopped at Xiaoqian. Boom! Before the Silver Dragon King arrived, the dragon might contained in the Silver Dragon King's terrifying cultivation caused Xiaoqian's qi and blood to surge, and his internal organs to rupture. Dang! At the critical moment, Wang Yan wielded the Scarlet Yen Imperial Sword and arrived before Xiaoqian. One saber and one sword attacked at the same time. The two blocked the Silver Dragon King's startling strike. However, the two still got knocked back, vomiting large mouthfuls of blood. The difference in cultivation was too great. The Silver Dragon King was a six-vein sovereign emperor, only half a step shy of peak sovereign emperor. Furthermore, as the Silver Dragon King, the resources and accumulations that he could use were not what an ordinary sovereign emperor could compare to. With just one hand, the Silver Dragon King easily knocked back Xiaoqian and Wang Yan at the same time. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. The Silver Dragon King's expression turned slightly unsightly. To think that he could not severely injure two juniors in one move. Although the Silver Dragon King knocked back Xiaoqian and Wang Yan, it was clear that the two still had strength to spare. Too strong. Xiaoqian and Wang Yan had the same thought at the same time. This Silver Dragon King's strength was somewhat boundlessly strong. An ordinary six-vein sovereign emperor could not compare to him at all. However, the Silver Dragon King still needed to maintain his small world and could not use his full power. This gave the two many opportunities. Dang! 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 The Silver Dragon King fought one against two with one hand, showing off his might. However, he could not seriously injure Xiaoqian and Wang Yan. After 10 odd moves, he actually started to feel fatigued. However, the Silver Dragon King could not put down his pride and ask Sikongshu for help. This made him feel exceptionally frustrated. Silver Dragon King, you are only so-so. You are far from comparable to the White Dragon King. You are not even comparable to the 3 palace masters of my Heaven Dragon Palace. You just live up to your reputation. Xiaoqian mocked the Silver Dragon King, trying to provoke the other party into giving up on maintaining his small world. As long as the Silver Dragon King let go, it would immediately startle the entire imperial capital. At that time, he would have truly dodged a calamity. Ninth Prince, you have repeatedly tried to stop me. This king could not bear to injure you. Since you want to force me, then don't blame me for being merciless. The Silver Dragon King was thoroughly enraged. However, He ignored Xiao Chen. Just take care of yourself first. Just as the Silver Dragon King was about to attack without caring about anything, a voice suddenly came from the pearl in his hand. Who is it? The Silver Dragon King immediately revealed an extremely surprised expression. Crack! The pearl suddenly shattered. What is a fiend? Idle clouds and wild cranes are impermanent. The lush mountains and clear waters asked the ruler's heart. A resplendent and strange saber light answered the Silver Dragon King. Then, a figure leaped out, and the small world completely collapsed. Chapter 2253. What is a demon? Idle clouds and wild cranes are impermanent, green mountains and clear waters asked the ruler's heart. The person who came was Fiendish Saber Shimu's first disciple, Lu Benwei. He finally broke the barrier of this small world from the outside. Kacha! It looked like the saber would strike the Silver Dragon King and severely injure it. However, the Silver Dragon King was a famous expert, after all. In the time it took for a spark to fly, he turned into a silver dragon image. As if he had teleported, he dodged the strongest attack of the saber. By the time the saber light arrived again, its power had already weakened significantly. Bang! When the saber struck the Silver Dragon King's chest, it gave off a loud clang. However, the saber struck the armor, unable to advance any further. The Silver Dragon King vomited a mouthful of blood as he went flying back and landed on the lake. Another deafening explosion rang out. Before he could gather his strength to counterattack, Lu Benwei had already executed his second move. What is a demon? The fallen flower man stood alone, the tiny rain swallows fly together. A strong wind blew, and the petals filled the sky. The flying leaves fell like rain, walking in the wind, standing alone. This strike stood calmly as the wind and rain stirred up the falling flowers. As the two swallows spread out, it turned into a drop of rain and fell. Lu Benwei spread his arms, and two afterimages flew away like swallows. Then, he turned into a drop of pure rain and fell towards the Silver Dragon King on the lake. Xiao Chen was slightly startled when he saw this scene. This scene seemed familiar, yet it was completely different from his memories. Be it the Fiendish Saber Inheritance's first move or the second move, Lu Benwei's comprehension was different from his. The first style he had comprehended was all things rejoicing together. He wanted to be at peace with the clouds, wild cranes, green mountains, and clear waters. Everything in the world was at his disposal, and there was no distinction between them. Lu Benwei used this to question the heart of the ruler, to ask himself, and also to ask his opponent. In the second style, what Xiao Chen comprehended was a sense of pride, a sense of persistence, and a sense of tyranny that looked down on the 9 heavens. Raindrop breaking the vault of heaven. Lu Benwei, on the other hand, comprehended a kind of indifference. Transcendence from the mundane world, the wind blows, the clouds do not sway, my heart is like me, and does not follow the heavens. The two different comprehensions were evenly matched. As long as it was suitable for him, it was fine. After using it, there were two completely different images, causing everyone's eyes to light up. However, given Lu Benwei's current cultivation as a 6-vein sovereign emperor, the might of the Fiendish Saber Inheritance was much greater than Xiao Chen's. Given Xiao Chen's current cultivation, even if he executed the Fiendish Saber Inheritance, he would find it hard to truly injure the Silver Dragon King. But Lu Benwei was different. Kacha! When this saber strike landed, the Silver Dragon King's armor shattered. The saber light instantly struck the Silver Dragon King. Bang! In the face of adversity, the Silver Dragon King roared ferociously and sent a palm strike. His 5 fingers morphed into a silver dragon claw, and the 5 dragon claws pierced Lu Benwei's chest at the same time. Lu Benwei snorted coldly. He endured the pain and was about to attack again. Suddenly, he felt a sense of danger. His figure flashed, and an arc of light flashed. It disappeared from where the Silver Dragon King's head had been. Then, it swept up and bound the Silver Dragon King. It was Sikong Shu who calmly made a move and rescued the Silver Dragon King. Then, the The snow python entered the lake and disappeared into the distance. Whoosh! Xiao Chen's figure flashed, and he landed beside Lu Benwei. When he saw the 5 bloody holes in Lu Benwei's chest, he asked sullenly, "Big brother Lu, are you all right?" "I'm fine. It won't take my life. I underestimated this Silver Dragon King's strength." Lu Benwei sheathed his saber and said calmly, "I'll find a place to treat my injuries first. The small world is already broken. Those two probably won't dare to come again." "All right." As Xiao Chen watched Lu Benwei's figure disappear, he entered deep thought. This big brother Lu is very elusive. Even Xiao Chen himself does not know where he usually goes. However, this is fine. Those who want to harm me will find it hard to detect Lu Benwei's existence. If not for big brother Lu making a move, I would have been in trouble. Xiao Chen had not expected the purple gold dragon emperor to be so deranged, sending the silver dragon king to kill him. Furthermore, this was in the imperial capital, Yen City, before the 9th prince. That should be fiendish Saber Shimu's disciple, right? Unexpectedly, Lord Xiao has such an expert protecting you in secret, the 9th prince said as he watched Lu Benwei leave. The 9th prince said with a hint of curiosity in his eyes as he watched Lu Benwei leave. Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, could it be that the 9th prince does not have any expert guards by his side? This question put Wang Yan in an awkward position, not knowing how to answer. The Heavenly Book scholar smiled bitterly at the side and said, "Xiao Chen, even the royal clan has a limited number of great perfection sovereign emperors. How can they arrange for one for every prince? Aside from a few favored princes, the royal clan will not arrange for a great perfection sovereign emperor to protect them. Actually, they use their own influence to recruit them. However, if you want to recruit a great perfection sovereign emperor, you will have to pay a significant price. Even if the 9th prince succeeds in recruiting the great perfection sovereign emperor, the 9th prince can only protect him at important moments. They cannot possibly be by the prince's side at all times. So, that is the case." This dispelled Xiao Chen's doubts about why he did not see any experts by Wang Yan's side in the earlier battle. This made sense. Even in Yen City, how many great perfection sovereign emperors could there be? It would be even more difficult for a great perfection sovereign emperor to accompany a prince at all times. What a pity for my brothers. Their deaths were not worth it. Displeasure flashed in Wang Yan's eyes. When the shock waves from the earlier battle swept out, not even the corpses of his secret guards remained. "Sorry, I implicated the 9th prince this time." Xiao Chen felt somewhat apologetic. Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King's target was him. Those secret guards were just collateral damage. It's not really implicating. In the end, it is because I do not have any authority in the imperial capital. If it were first brother or 8th brother, those two would not dare to mess around. Wang Yan showed a calm expression, not showing any intention of blaming Xiao Chen. The Heavenly Book scholar said from the side, "It is possible that there are other princes behind this matter." Without the princes taking care of this, the Heavenly Book scholar would not have been able to deal with this. Without the prince's help, Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King would not be able to silently lay a small world in the Mirror Lake. First brother's wedding is approaching, and there are more people from all walks of life in the imperial capital. This is probably just the beginning, Wang Yan said with a drawn-out sigh, not feeling surprised. After some thought, Xiao Chen said, "9th prince, I think I can agree to what you said earlier." When Wang Yan heard that, he asked softly, "You mean, you agree to come to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb with me?" "Yes. However, I have a request." "What request?" "Speak." After Xiao Chen finished speaking, the 9th prince thought for a while before saying, "All right, I can promise you that. As long as you agree to come to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb with me, you will be my guest." "That's good. Goodbye." After Xiao Chen turned around, he quickly left, not lingering. The Heavenly Book scholar and the 9th prince entered deep thought as they watched Xiao Chen leave. Unexpectedly, this is what he needs me to do for him. Chang Ji, is it good for him? The ninth prince Wang Yan asked, feeling confused. The heavenly book scholar shook his head and said, there are no benefits at all. He might even end up dead. I cannot figure out this person, nor can I divine, Wang Yan said calmly, it does not matter. Given this, there is no need to worry about him cultivating a demonic Tao cultivation technique. A person who can make such a request would not be in cahoots with those demonic Tao cultivators. Ninth prince, which prince do you think is involved this time? Wang Yan replied coldly, aside from little 13, which other prince would be so bold, daring to make such a rash move in the imperial capital? First brother allied with the smiling daughter pavilion. It looks like he is really anxious. For the sake of gaining help, he does not care about anything else. The heavenly book scholar nodded and said, I guessed it earlier as well. However, I did not want Xiao Qin to know, so I did not say it. Don't tell Xiao Qin about this first. Given his character, I'm afraid that he will seek trouble for little 13 tonight. On the other side, Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King fled far away from the center of the lake. When he reappeared, he was in a secluded courtyard. There were already several people waiting for a long time in the courtyard. If Xiao Qin were here, he would easily recognize two of them. As for the last person, he would probably be able to guess. As Wang Yan had guessed, the youngest of the three was the Yan Emperor's favorite son, the 13th Prince Wang Yi. On his left was Xiao Chen's old acquaintance, Bai Yunfei, who had the royal bloodline of the Bai's empire. The person on the right was wearing a golden-yellow robe with purple patterns embedded in his collar. The purple and gold colors were rather eye-catching. This person was Bai Yunfei's good friend, the famous dragon god crown prince of the divine dragon empire, Qin Ming. Did teacher succeed? Seeing Sikong Shu appear, Bai Yunfei's eyes flashed with anticipation and he hurriedly went up to ask. The nearby Qin Ming seemed to be much calmer, and he already knew the answer in his heart after observing the expressions of the two old men. It failed. He has a great perfection sovereign emperor by his side at all times. To think that the ninth prince even helped him at the crucial moment. Sikong Shu and the Silver Dragon King said with somewhat unsightly expressions. After all, 2 six-veined sovereign emperors had gone to kill a junior. No matter how they looked at it, it was extremely embarrassing. However, the 13th Prince Wang Yi heaved a sigh of relief when he heard that. If they had really assassinated Xiao Chen and investigated the matter, it would have been problematic. The 13th Prince stepped forward and said, Seniors, I already did my best to help with this matter. As for what you promised me. Before the 13th Prince could finish, Qin Ming interrupted, 13th Prince, don't worry. Since we are here, we will definitely help the 13th Prince ascend to the ceremony. This failure will not affect our relationship. There is no need to worry. The 13th Prince smiled and said, Good. In that case, I can rest assured. You can stay in the imperial capital for now. If you need anything, you can come and look for me at any time. After the 13th Prince left, Bai Yunfei said in a flustered and exasperated manner, if we can't even kill him with this, we will not have another chance in Yen City. Qin Ming said indifferently, there's no rush. I have a feeling that he will definitely go to the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. At that time, we will have plenty of opportunities to kill him openly. Chapter 2254. Ancient Yen Emperor tomb. After parting from the ninth prince and the heavenly book scholar, Xiao Qin muttered to himself. If the ethereal immortal palace appeared, it would be in the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. This was not good news for Xiao Qin. The battle between the immortal palace and the crown prince was bound to cause a great disturbance. However, there were too many uncertainties regarding the immortal palace. Putting aside the accuracy of this prophecy, among the 7 keys, the most important one, the inheritance key, had long been lost. Without the inheritance key, even a faux god would not be able to open the doors of the ethereal immortal palace. Chu Chaoyun once said that the secret of the inheritance key might only be known by the previous heaven dragon. However, the previous generation heaven dragon had been imprisoned in the starry heavens dragon prison. The purple gold dragon emperor had tortured the heaven dragon for 20-odd years without finding any clues. The chances of obtaining the inheritance key were extremely slim. Let's put this matter aside for now. The people of the Divine Dragon Empire and the White Marsh Beast Empire have come to Yen City. The people of the Profound Heaven Holy Land and the Universe Origin sect will probably join in the excitement. Especially the Sacred Son of the Profound Heaven. Back in the Netherworld, he even fought with Chu Chaoyun over the Ethereal Palace's key. Xiaoqin entered deep thought as he thought to himself, if I include the experts of the Azure Lotus Church and the Shuowu dynasty, the number of factions that will come because of the ancient Yen Emperor tomb is somewhat frightening. Of the 8 super factions of the Great Thousand Realms, almost everyone except the Pirate Alliance was present. Currently, of the known keys, Xiaoqin had 1, Yuan Zhen had 1, Chu Chaoyun had 1, and the First Prince had given 1 to the Azure Lotus Church. Excluding the inheritance key, there were still 2 keys that had yet to appear. His head was about to explode. All the clues were in a mess, and his thoughts were in a mess. Xiaoqin shook his head and stopped thinking about these troublesome things. He started thinking about today's battle. In the battle at the center of the lake, Xiaoqin finally experienced the strength and terror of the older generation sovereign emperors. His divine energy was stable, his cultivation was strong, and he grasped a soul tool. Due to Xiaoqian's age, his accomplishments in the Dao domain made others look up to him. His cultivation stagnated, unable to advance, so he could only increase his strength in other aspects. The Dao domain was undoubtedly a good breakthrough point. As long as he had enough time and his talent wasn't too bad, he would definitely be able to break through. Apart from forbidden techniques, I don't seem to have many other methods. However, as long as I don't get trapped in his pocket dimension, I should be able to leave if I want to. Xiaoqin muttered in a low voice. Condensing a small world was not an easy task. Even the Silver Dragon King relied on a secret treasure to do so. Furthermore, it was very unstable. He carefully took stock of his trump cards. Aside from the Forbidden God Demon Body unsealing technique, he did not have any other trump cards. Perhaps he could use the 10,000 Dragons Art and the Divine Lightning Talisman. The former could activate the potential of the Royal Blue Dragon bloodline limitlessly. Xiaoqin could only use less than 1% of the Royal Blue Dragon bloodline's power. If he could successfully break through to the second layer, he would experience a huge leap and achieve a qualitative change. The 10,000 Dragons Art had a total of 5 layers. Breaking through the bottleneck of the second layer was considered great perfection. However, Xiaoqin had only just started cultivating the second layer and was far from reaching the peak. He was even further from breaking through. As for the Divine Lightning Talisman, he took the risk to use it today, giving Xiaoqin a huge pleasant surprise. However, its power was too berserk. Xiaoqin could not control it freely despite its strong might, greatly reducing its destructive power. If he could control some of the Divine Lightning Talisman's power, it might be possible for Xiaoqin to break the small world maintained by the Silver Dragon King's Pearl. The Dao domain required time or a fortuitous encounter to improve. Within a short period, Xiaoqin had only 2 choices when facing the pressure of the older generation sovereign emperors. One was to cultivate the 10,000 Dragons Art, and the other was to control the Divine Lightning Talisman. After thinking for a long time, Xiaoqin decided to control the Divine Lightning Talisman first. The 10,000 Dragons Art would take its time. He immediately stopped hesitating. Xiaoqin took out the Ice Fire Lotus platform and sat down cross-legged. Then, he sank his consciousness into his soul pool. In the vast and boundless soul pool, the Blue Dragon Divine Seal shone resplendently and dazzlingly. The sun and the moon shone together on the Divine Seal, illuminating the sky. Under the illumination of the light, 3 glistening ripples appeared on the soul pool's surface. These were the 3 divine veins that represented Xiaoqian's soul energy cultivation. After Xiaoqin refined the 3 divine veins, they looked like 3 slender dragon images burning with a faint divine flame as they continuously swam around the Blue Dragon Divine Seal in the soul pool. As the dragon images swam around, they continuously infused the soul energy in the soul pool into the Blue Dragon Divine Seal. It went on and on without end. Xiaochen only needed to control the divine seal to erupt with soul energy, driving the sun and the moon's radiance to bring out the three divine vein images. In the next moment, Xiaochen's consciousness entered the blue dragon divine seal. The blue dragon divine seal's light twisted and changed, turning into a human figure that looked like Xiaochen. In that instant, Xiaochen felt like he was in a vast and boundless soul pool, looking boundlessly mysterious. Whoosh! In the soul pool, the clone formed by the divine seal looked straight into the depths of the soul pool. It's really hidden deep. I can't see any trace of the divine lightning talisman at all. I have to make a trip down. After thinking for a while, Xiaochen's figure flashed, creating ripples as he dove into the water. When one entered the depths of a cultivator's soul pool, one would discover that the soul pool was even vaster than the ocean. However, less than 1/10,000,000th of the soul pool could be used by a cultivator. Most of the area was forbidden. If one used the divine seal as a clone in the soul pool, the slightest carelessness could injure one's soul or cause one to get lost. Normally speaking, no one would take the risk of entering the soul pool unless it was absolutely necessary. However, Xiaochen had no other choice. For the sake of controlling the divine lightning talisman, he had to give it his all. Xiaochen continuously dove into the soul pool. The bottom of the netherworld spring was incredibly cold. Soon, he felt uncomfortable all over, and the dragon seal clone slowly dimmed. The surface of the pool seemed to be sparkling, but in its depths, there was an endless darkness. It was deep and silent, swallowing everything, unfathomable like the human heart. Boom! Just as Xiaochen could not hold on any longer, an electric light flashed in the darkness. His face immediately lit up in joy. However, before Xiaochen's joy faded, it froze. That electric light turned into a weapon and charged at his clone. He hurriedly dodged and narrowly avoided the attack. As he dove deeper, the number of electric weapons he encountered increased. He had to be even more cautious. After about 15 minutes, the darkness before Xiaochen vanished. Under the illumination of the electric light, the pool water turned a transparent gold. I see you again. A talisman lay quietly at the bottom of the water far in front. Xiaochen did not dare to approach. If he did, he would definitely turn to ashes, his soul scattering. Compared to when he first saw the divine lightning talisman in the Kunlun realm, Xiaochen was much calmer now. Back then, Xiaochen did not dare to try to control this divine lightning talisman that the immortal epic's thunder ancestor left behind. Now, he wanted to try and control the divine lightning talisman. This was the divine lightning talisman that the thunder ancestor condensed from the 10,000 tribulation divine lightning of the immortal epic. Back then, when immortals underwent their lightning tribulations, they all materialized this talisman. The thunder immortal ancestor controlled the tribulation lightning essence and all the lightning phenomena in the world. He was the essence of the Tao of thunder. If he died, the Tao of thunder would collapse, and no cultivator in the world would be able to use the power of thunder. Now that this was the martial epoch, the might of the divine lightning talisman naturally could not compare to the immortal epoch. However, once it was completely released, it would still be earth-shattering and intimidating. As long as Xiaochen could control 1,000th of its power, he could severely injure a great perfection sovereign emperor. Although the divine lightning I could safely use the tribulation lightning's energy, it was not as good as directly controlling it. I need to fuse a strand of the divine seal's origin into this talisman. Xiao! In the blink of an eye, a ray of light shot out from his finger. As the light shot out, Xiaochen's incarnation became noticeably dimmer. It looked like this strand of divine seal's origin energy would enter the talisman after dodging the countless electric lights. Ka-Xie. A weapon made of divine lightning broke the divine seal's origin energy. In reality, Xiaochen vomited a mouthful of blood, and his complexion instantly paled. Again. After staring for a while, Xiaochen flicked his finger again, sending out another strand of divine seal's origin energy. Pu-Ci. He failed again. In reality, on the ice-fire lotus platform, Xiaochen's body gave off many distorted images of his 3 spiritual souls and 7 physical souls. One last chance. Go all out. Without hesitation, Xiaoqin sent out another strand of Divine Seal's origin energy. If he failed again, his soul would suffer severe injuries. At best, he would need to recuperate for 10 years. At worst, his soul would scatter. Rumble. However, this final attempt did not disappoint Xiaoqin. That strand of Divine Seal's origin energy dodged the electric lights that the talisman sent out and entered it. A smile appeared on Xiaoqin's face as he felt the Divine Seal's origin energy slowly merging with the talisman. The instant the merger was complete, Xiaoqin roared ferociously. Then, the Divine Lightning Talisman, which lay quietly at the bottom of the water, shot up like an arrow. The Divine Lightning Talisman was like an unsheathed sword, soaring straight up like an arrow. As the Divine Lightning Talisman continued to rise, Xiaoqin felt his soul energy rapidly draining. Just as the Divine Lightning Talisman was about to break out of the water, Xiaoqin sighed. After exhausting all his soul energy, the Divine Seal clone turned into countless motes of light and leaped out of the water. Then, it reformed into the Blue Dragon Divine Seal. Xiaoqin had failed at the last moment. However, the Divine Seal's origin energy had already merged with the Divine Lightning Talisman. The next attempt would be much easier. However, just as Xiaoqin felt disappointed, the surface of the soul pool suddenly released tens of thousands of layers of electric light, eclipsing everything else. A careful look revealed a sharp edge of the Divine Lightning Talisman, looking like a flower bud waiting to bloom. On the lotus platform, Xiaoqin rejoiced. He opened his eyes, and a brilliant light flickered in them. A talisman slowly grew in Xiaoqin's right palm. This was a miniature Divine Lightning Talisman formed by the electric energy contained in the tip of the iceberg, combined with Xiaoqin's Dao domain. Good. This 1,000th of the Divine Lightning Talisman's energy is already sufficient. Xiaoqin revealed a smile. The usually calm Xiaoqin found it hard to hide his joy. Someone is here. Xiaoqin raised his eyebrows and spread out his soul energy. He sensed Suyi rushing over, seeming to have something urgent. Then, he quickly put away the Divine Lightning Talisman in his palm. It turned into a flash of purple electric light as Xiaoqin leaped out of a window and appeared before Suyi. Xiaoqin, there's a change to our agreement. Xiaoqin frowned slightly. What happened? Suyi smiled softly and said, it should be something good. Ling Yu just told me that headliner Ling Long invited him to meet her outside the city alone. Xiaoqin's expression immediately changed drastically. Damn it! That fool got fooled. There are only a few days left to the wedding. How can the Smiling Daughter Pavilion let Ling Long go? Quickly chase after her. Chapter 2255. On the streets of the imperial capital Yen City, Ling Yu looked like he had been reborn. A smile appeared on his face as he dashed through the crowd. Occasionally, he even knocked over some people. After apologizing, he continued on his way. Wait for me. Wait for me. This time, I will not disappoint you. Ling Yu repeated these words in his heart. His expression turned grave, and his eyes slowly turned resolute. 10 years ago, he let down a person's feelings, leaving the person he loved the most covered in wounds. 10 years later, Ling Yu's wedding day approached. She would be marrying the most powerful prince of the dynasty. Ling Yu passed each day like a year, suffering painful torture every day. The cause he sowed 10 years ago resulted in today's consequences. This made him feel so much pain that he wished he were dead. He spent every day and night in pain and regret. Today, Ling Long finally gave him another chance. This time, no matter what, he had to grasp it. After Ling Yu left the city gates, he did not stop at all. He rushed straight to the rendezvous point with Ling Long. The silhouette of Yen City behind slowly turned blurry. Then, he finally saw the figure of a beauty at the endlessly gushing flaming river. Dressed in a red dress, her slender figure looked at Jiang He in silence. Ling Long. Under the setting sun, this beauty's figure looked like a feather cloak made of the setting sun. 50 kilometers away, Ling Yu, who saw Ling Long's figure, immediately felt stunned. He could no longer care about anything else. He ran at full speed and arrived before Ling Long in a moment. "Elder sister Ling Long, I let you down." When Ling Long got closer, Ling Yu felt unbearably guilty and choked with sobs. 10 years ago, I should not have let you go. Come with me. This time, I absolutely will not let you down. In the end, Ling Yu said resolutely, no longer hesitating. Headliner Chiu Yu. However, when the woman before Ling Yu turned around, he felt greatly startled. This person was one of the headliners of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Chiu Yu. Ling Yu had met her more than once, so he immediately recognized her. Why is it you? Where's elder sister Ling Long? Where is elder sister Ling Long? What did you do to elder sister Ling Long? Ling Yu immediately felt flustered, showing a nervous expression as he looked around. However, he could not see headliner Ling Long. You are really naive. Headliner Ling Long is the person who will become the dynasty's empress. Why would she come to see a minor character like you? In the imperial capital, Yen City, you are just an insignificant lesser sovereign personage. Who do you think you are? To think that you even have designs on headliner Ling Long. Chiu Yu revealed a mocking expression as she mocked. Headliner Ling Long asked me to give you this sword. The first prince already knows about the matter between you and headliner Ling Long. If you do not wish for her to suffer in the future, then take your own life. What? Falling from heaven to hell? Ling Yu was instantly stupefied. He was completely stupefied, not knowing what to do as he held the sword that Chiu Yu handed him. Is this really Ling Long's wish? The hand holding the sword was trembling. The sword was in his hand, but it seemed to have been stabbed into his heart. His heart was bleeding, but he did not feel any pain. Is it important? Chiu Yu sneered and said nonchalantly. Ling Yu paused when he heard that. That's right. Is it important? If the first prince knew that headliner Ling Long once had an affair with him, how could he let headliner Ling Long have an easy time? Rather than letting that happen, Ling Yu might as well let this relationship remain a secret forever after his death. However, this was truly unbearable. Those beautiful memories, those past events, were going to wither like a flower. This sword was most definitely not handed over by headliner Ling Long. Elder sister Ling Long could not even bear to let me shed tears. How could she let me bleed and die? Suddenly, the confusion on Ling Yu's face vanished. A sharp expression appeared in his eyes as he looked straight at headliner Chiu Yu. This gaze was pure and sharp. Hidden in this gaze was the unyielding pride and sharpness of a youth. For some reason, Chiu Yu felt some fear. She could not help taking a few steps back. Ling Yu's aura surged as he took a few steps forward. Then, he smiled self-mockingly. It looks like an insignificant person like me has some sense of existence, making someone feel threatened. Let me guess. Is it the first prince or your pavilion master Yang? Chiu Yu's expression changed slightly. Then, she said sullenly, Ling Yu, are you still dreaming? Your mistake is loving someone you should not love. Today, you must die. Letting you commit suicide is just to lessen your pain. Ha 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 ha. Wrong. 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 Ling Yu reared his head back and laughed maniacally, appearing maniacal. I have missed out on many things in my life. However, meeting headliner Ling Long was the best decision I made in my life. In this imperial capital, Yen City, I, Ling Yu, do indeed have a lowly status. However, what does liking a person have to do with status and status? Back then, my mistake was that I paid too much attention to this, resulting in the current situation. You madman. Stay away from me. Seeing Ling Yu's somewhat crazed state, Chiu Yu threw a palm strike at him in a fluster. The headliners of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion were not weak. Chiu Yu was a sovereign personage in the first place. In her desperation, she used her full power in this palm strike. Scram! Ling Yu snorted coldly. A golden light flickered in his eyes as he activated his great desolate Ian bloodline. His aura flourished, bursting out with a might that rivaled that of a sovereign emperor. Pu ci. Qiu Yu vomited a mouthful of blood as she went flying back. Heavy shock flashed in her eyes. All along, Lingyu had been chased away by the guards in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion several times without retaliating. The impression Lingyu gave Qiu Yu was that he was incredibly cowardly. She had never expected Lingyu to have such a disposition and strength. Qiu Yu immediately understood why headliner Ling Long took a liking to this youth back then. Don't worry. I will kill myself with this sword that you gave me. I, Lingyu, have never been someone who fears death. I am not dying because of you. I just do not want Martial Uncle to take risks for me. I do not want everyone to make up for the mistake I made back then. As Lingyu looked at Qiu Yu, heavy disdain flashed in his eyes. Although Lingyu was lowly, he had never lived an ignoble existence in this world. During this period, Lingyu had remained in the Misty Rain Pavilion, not leaving at all. However, Lingyu was not stupid. He could sense that his martial uncle, Xiao Chen, had been silently working hard for his sake. The Misty Rain Pavilion's pavilion master Su was also carefully preparing. Lingyu did not know about it, but he could feel it. He once cried in the middle of the night, speechless at the moon. It was not guilt because he felt inferior or helpless. It was just some silent gratitude that he could not bear to endure. To be able to meet Ling Long, Martial Uncle, Uncle Beggar, and the others in this life, it is all worth it. Crack. The sword in Lingyu's hand stabbed into his chest. At the same time, Xiaoqin used his veritable essence energy to shatter Lingyu's heart. Lingyu fell over, his life force fading at a visible rate. Qiu Yu stood up somewhat blankly and wiped away the blood at the corner of her lips. As she looked at the fallen Lingyu, she appeared somewhat dispirited. The initial arrogance and mockery in Qiu Yu's eyes were completely covered up by shock. As Lingyu's consciousness slowly turned blurry, he seemed to see headliner Ling Long in the soaring dragon Great Realm. He saw her smiling faintly and scolding him for being stupid, unable to learn no matter how she taught him. Then, he saw his martial uncle, Xiao Chen, and he remembered the past in the Purple Flame sect. He remembered the absurdity of their first meeting, the absurdity of Xiao Chen saying, "I am your martial uncle." Lingyu really wanted to become someone like his martial uncle. If he were his martial uncle, perhaps he would have brought elder sister Ling Long away 10 years ago. Goodbye, elder sister Ling Long. Goodbye, martial uncle. Little Lingyu, I will repay all the favors in my next life. You did well. He committed suicide. No matter what, the first prince cannot be blamed for it. Furthermore, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion will not be implicated. This fellow is rather courageous. Such a result is a happy ending for everyone. Many blood-sucking vines shot out from the ground, flickering with crackling electric light. Then, the blood-sucking vines gathered and formed an old man. This old man was the mysterious man shrouded in bloody shadows who fought with Xiao Chen for the 5-element divine lightning back then. Due to a fortuitous encounter, he obtained the blood-sucking vines and obtained another opportunity. I thought that this fellow would run. Unexpectedly, I was overthinking. Let's go. The blood-sucking vine old man grabbed headliner Qiu Yu. Then, after a few leaps in the air, he landed on a fortress ship in the middle of the river. There were already people waiting on the fortress ship. One of them was no stranger to Xiao Chen. It was the Black Lotus Church's holy son, Ming Xian. The blood-sucking vine old man nodded slightly to indicate that the matter was settled. Then, the holy son Ming Xian sent a voice projection. The mysterious person sitting on the ship stood up and walked to the bow. Then, he looked coldly at the body in the distance, whose blood had yet to turn cold. Whoosh! 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 When Xiao Chen and Su Yi, who had rushed over, saw Lingyu lying on the ground, their expressions changed drastically. Lingyu no longer had much life force left. His breathing was weak, and he was somewhat powerless to reverse the situation. Su Yi checked Lingyu's pulse with her finger. After a while, she shook her head at Xiao Chen with a somewhat dispirited expression. When Xiao Chen looked up, he discovered a fortress ship heading for Yen City in the middle of the river. A person stood at the bow of the ship, looking in this direction expressionlessly. The first prince, Wang Fei. Xiao Qin could no longer suppress the murderous intent in his heart. He soared into the air, wanting to give chase. "Martial uncle, don't chase. Don't chase. Don't take risks for Ling Yu. Ling Yu cannot bear it. Let me rest in peace. In my next life, I will be your martial nephew again and properly serve you." However, Ling Yu firmly grabbed the corner of Wang Fei's clothes. It was like he had the final radiance of the setting sun. Wang Fei's soft voice was barely audible, making one feel heartache. Wang Fei held on tightly, not daring to let go even for a moment. Xiao Qin felt a pang in his heart. He looked up at the sky but could not bear to lower his head and look at Ling Yu one last time. He feared that he would not be able to hold back his tears. "Let go. Martial uncle promises not to chase." The instant Ling Yu spoke, he closed his eyes and let go of Xiao Chen's clothes. Chapter 2256. In the flaming river, the fortress ship carrying the first prince Wang Fei and the others gradually moved further and further away. Then, it disappeared from sight. Since he had already promised his little martial nephew, Xiao Qin naturally would not chase after him. At the shore, Ling Yu no longer had any vitality left. Naturally, one short sword could not take the life of a sovereign personage. However, if a person wanted to die and committed suicide, even a deity would not be able to save him. Xiao Qin squatted down and looked at Ling Yu's corpse, which had yet to turn cold, wordlessly. He severed his own heart meridian and wholeheartedly sought death. Even if we wanted to save him, it would be difficult. Su Yi, who was at the side, had a worried look on her face. She had a complicated look in her eyes, and all sorts of feelings welled up in her heart. There was no lack of divine physicians in the imperial capital, Yen City. They could bring the dying back to life and bring the dead back to life. Although it was difficult to save someone like Ling Yu who had just died not long ago, it was not impossible. One just had to pay a sufficient price. However, if a person wholeheartedly wanted to die and had no desire to live, even if all the divine doctors in the world gathered together, they would not be able to save him. "Idiot, why are you so stupid? You were provoked to commit suicide by just a few words from others. I've suffered so much over the years, but haven't I still made it through?" Siyi looked at Ling Yu's complexion, which was slowly turning pale. Tears welled up in her eyes as she choked with sobs. "Don't blame him. He doesn't want me to risk my life for him. He cares about us more than he cares about himself. He doesn't live happily," Xiao Qin said softly as he held Ling Yu's hand. His voice was gentle and warm as though Ling Yu was still alive. He blamed himself. If he had not brought him to the soaring dragon great world, if he had not met Ling Long, perhaps everything would have been different. He was still young, becoming a king before the age of 40. Given time, he would definitely grow. However, there were no ifs in this world. Xiao Qin had to face the pressure of the Yanwu dynasty's first prince alone at such a young age. If it was him, would he be able to bear it? Xiao Qin was silent, unable to give an answer. Perhaps he couldn't bear it either. Sometimes, he wondered why he cared and doted on his little martial nephews so much. Most of the time, when he looked at Ling Yu, he was looking at his past self. Once he met Exquisite, he would miss his whole life. "I can make a mistake for the rest of my life, but I will never regret it." Even if Ling Yu was given another chance, he would definitely not regret meeting headliner Ling Long if he had a choice. Suddenly, Xiao Qin recalled something and rummaged through the storage ring for a long time. After a while, he took out a pearl. "What is this?" Xiao Qin muttered, "This is a soul fixation pearl. It can protect his soul for 7 days. If I have the chance, I really don't want to use this treasure." The soul-fixing pearl was the congratulatory gift that the ghost race's Qing Qing gave to Xiao Qin during his king conferral ceremony in the Kunlun realm. "What happens after 7 days?" Xiao Qin said unhurriedly, "This is the reason why I don't want to use it. Because I don't know what will happen after 7 days. So. Someone had arrived. Xiao Chen and Suyi raised their brows and turned their heads to look. A slightly sloppy figure, as light as a swallow, rose and landed in the air. A moment ago, Xiao Chen was extremely far away. In the next second, he arrived before Ling Yu. The beggar's hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in dirt. Xiao Chen could not see the beggar's expression. I just made a trip to the hidden spirit temple. This time, Big Brother will not be able to save you. The beggar's eyes filled with surprise, sorrow, and helplessness. Before Xiao Chen and Suyi could ask, the beggar seemed to think of something. A light flashed in his eyes as he quickly left. Senior! Suyi stepped forward and shouted a few times at the beggar's departing figure. The beggar did not even turn his head back. After a while, he vanished from the two's sight. Suyi appeared disappointed, showing a sad expression. The two were not fools. Naturally, they could tell that this beggar possessed a special skill and was rather strong. However, they did not know how high this beggar's cultivation was. They could not help but hold on to some faint hope. Xiao Chen said softly, "Let's go back. If he can save you, he will definitely do so." 5 days later, the blazing sun hung high in the imperial capital Yen City. The sky was cloudless for thousands of kilometers around. Such good weather was rare even in the imperial capital Yen City. Many people said that the heavens were on their side. Even the heavens were giving their blessings to the first prince and headliner Ling Long's wedding. The entire imperial capital brimmed with a festive atmosphere. That was right. Today was the day the first prince would marry headliner Ling Long. After preparing for a month and a half, the grand wedding that had spread throughout the world and everyone knew about finally arrived as scheduled. The entire city celebrated, and the atmosphere was very lively. Before the wedding, the Smiling Daughter Pavilion already worked with all the headliners of the pleasure districts in the imperial capital to parade the streets for 3 days, pushing the atmosphere to its peak. Even in the most bustling city in the world, such a scene was incredibly shocking, something that no one had ever seen before. This resulted in a hubbub of voices on the day of the wedding. Everyone in the city anticipated the wedding. The streets near the Smiling Daughter Pavilion were packed with people, looking like a mountain or a sea. The Imperial Ancestral Temple had to send experts in and out to guard against unknown dangers. However, no one would dare to be careless. Be it the First Prince or the Pleasure District Alliance, none of them were easy to offend. Furthermore, the two sides worked together. Everyone knew that the First Prince Wang Fei would soon ride the Huang clan's lucky beast. The First Prince would lead the vast wedding procession to the Smiling Daughter Pavilion to bring headliner Ling Long to the First Prince's residence before holding the wedding. The better viewing spots in the pavilions on both sides of the street had long since been occupied. Before the wedding procession arrived, the cultivators in the pavilions were already in a heated discussion. The First Prince is truly incredible. With the succession race around the corner, he married in such a high-profile manner and formed an alliance with the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. He immediately overshadowed the 8th Prince and the 13th Prince. I heard that 2/3 of the 108 feudal vassals rushed over to attend this wedding. Ha! That is natural. We are just here to watch the excitement. However, this is different. Originally, the 3 princes had similar trump cards. Now that the First Prince obtained the Pleasure District Alliance's help, he immediately pulled away from them. That is not all. The Sword God's noble clans, which had not chosen a side all along, finally made their decision after learning about this wedding, placing their bets on the First Prince. This is even more incredible. This can be considered a chain reaction. Without this wedding, there would not be so many feudal vassals coming to offer their congratulations. The Su clan, who was watching from the sidelines, would also not make a decision. I can only say that the First Prince's move of marrying headliner Ling Long is a good one. Indeed. Although luck is something ethereal, everyone in the world knows about this wedding. Everyone in the entire dynasty knows about it. Everyone probably already has a candidate for the crown prince in their hearts. Unknowingly, this reputation will definitely boost the first prince's luck. Hee hee. Let's just casually chat about the matter of seizing the throne. Only the major characters can participate. Let's just watch the excitement. I heard that the Azure Lotus Sword Immortals will all be coming to the first prince's residence to celebrate the wedding. Ha! How unfortunate. How unfortunate. The wedding invitations have already reached sky-high prices. It is not something we can afford. Otherwise, I would really like to see the Azure Lotus Sword Immortals dance. If we miss this opportunity, who knows when we can see the Azure Lotus Sword Immortals again. The atmosphere in the pavilions became extremely intense, not stopping for even a moment. However, the people at the tables in groups of 3 to 5 did not notice that there were 2 people at a table by the window with calm expressions and some helplessness on their faces. One of the 2 people held a folding fan. The other person wore a hood, hiding his face. These 2 were the Heavenly Book Scholar and the 9th Prince Wang Yan. They looked at the expectant crowd on the street below and listened to the endless discussions in the pavilions. Both of them seemed disinterested and out of place in this world. Brother Xiao, are you still not willing to receive guests? The 9th prince asked softly as he held up a cup of wine under the hood. The Heavenly Book Scholar nodded and said, the Misty Rain Pavilion has been closed for 5 days already. The security is tight. I only managed to enter after a few rounds of questioning. However, I only saw Pavilion Master Su and did not see Xiao Chen. This is truly worrying. The matter of the first prince hounding Ling Yu to death was originally a secret. However, the Heavenly Book Scholar looked at the heavens and divined that someone by Xiao Chen's side had died. Back then, when Xiao Chen agreed to help the 9th prince seize the throne, his request had something to do with Ling Yu. After the 9th prince learned of this, he did not dare to delay. After Wang Yan asked around, he gained a rough understanding of the situation. He felt it was unfortunate. Originally, the 9th prince wanted to console Xiao Chen. However, he did not see Xiao Chen, which made him even more worried. Now that Ling Yu was dead, would Xiao Chen still intend to stand up for his martial nephew? Naturally, the losses outweighed the gains. Ordinary people would not take any action. However, if it was Xiao Chen, everything would be unpredictable. As the 2 watched this extraordinarily bustling and joyous scene, they felt somewhat sorrowful in their hearts. However, they were not willing to say anything. In the end, the imperial capital Yen City was not Ling Yu's city. At the very least, no one would care about the death of an insignificant person. In fact, no one even knew about it. Everyone was waiting in anticipation for the first prince to appear and bring them the grandest wedding in the history of the dynasty. Chapter 2257. They're here. Someone said from downstairs, and all the cultivators on the floor rushed over. All of them rushed to the railings in front of the windows, craning their necks in anticipation. In the distance, 2 snow-colored azure phoenixes were leading the way, and they were slowly approaching. Azure wands were holy beasts with the bloodline of the phoenix holy beast. They had been known as auspicious beasts since ancient times. They were rare and symbolized pure and beautiful love. Now, they were auspicious beasts that the royal clan reared. Furthermore, these 2 snow-colored azure wands were unusual among azure wands. Their feathers were pure white, like the evening snow of the Tian Shan Mountains, untainted by dust. There was a male and a female, a perfect pair. Rumor had it that when the Yen Emperor and Emperor-Empress got married, they used these 2 snow-colored azure wands. It would be impossible for a regular dynasty disciple to borrow them. The cultivators of the imperial capital had not seen snow-colored azure wands in pairs for many years already. The azure wands spread their wings and flew low, releasing a holy light from their bodies. Everywhere they passed, 7 colored auspicious signs descended, shining with spiritual light. This bathed the procession in light, draping them in colorful clothes made of auspicious signs. The procession looked brilliant and vibrant, making them look extraordinarily valiant and boundlessly handsome. This made the entire procession stand out from the masses, radiating light. Behind the snow-colored azure wands were pairs of dainty women riding red-crowned cranes. They smiled as they scattered 7 colored spirit pills along the way. Naturally, the spirit pills of the princes were of extraordinary grade. Those who managed to snatch them all rejoiced. What a grand display! The first prince is really generous. These are all rank 5 heavenly pills. If those sage monarchs consume them, they will be overjoyed. Even sovereign emperors would not dare to casually waste them. Where is the first prince? Why don't I see him? There's no rush. The procession is very long. I heard that it is 50 kilometers long. We will have to wait a while before we can see the first prince. The 50-kilometer-long procession bathed in 7 colored auspicious signs headed for the Smiling Daughter Pavilion before everyone's eyes. The procession moved very slowly. Occasionally, it had to stop to accept the congratulatory gifts from the feudal lords and ancient noble clans, showing off its might to the world. The cultivators in the pavilion only saw the first prince's true appearance after 4 hours. Surrounded by the crowd, a man riding a tall steed covered in flames slowly appeared in front of the crowd. The horse's long hair seemed to be burning fiercely like fireworks. Its eyes revealed a mighty gaze, and its body was suffused with an ancient divine might. A fire Qilin. Is that the legendary divine horse with the Qilin bloodline? It really is this divine horse. I heard that the Yan Huang founding ancestor rode this horse and conquered the entire Yanwu dynasty. I didn't expect it to still be alive and used by the first prince as a mount for his wedding. This is an extraordinarily extravagant gesture. The first prince truly treats headliner Ling Long well. I have nothing to say about it. In front of the window, the 9th prince smiled bitterly under his hood. The warhorse that Yan Huang used to conquer the country, the fire Kirin, has not appeared for 1,000 years. It actually appeared at a wedding. How ironic. To the 9th the Qilin son 9th. To was the daughter. The Qilin. If it appeared one day, aside from a battlefield, no other place could match its stage. The heavenly book scholar said softly, "Be quieter. The first prince is coming. Congratulations, first prince. I hope that the first prince and Ling Long will be together for 1,000 years, forever united." Boom. When the first prince appeared on the 5-kilometer-long street, thunderous congratulations rang out at the same time. This scene was very shocking. The words of congratulations drowned out all the clamor. Even the auspicious clouds in the sky scattered. Blessings rang out, echoing in the clouds. The first prince Wang Fei wore golden battle armor and a scarlet cloak, bathing in 7-colored auspicious signs. As he rode the fire Qilin, the first prince looked handsome and extraordinary. He looked like he had already become the crown prince of the dynasty, exuding a vast imperial might. The first prince smiled, showing joy on his face. As he looked at the cultivators on both sides, he nodded slightly. Whoosh! 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 Delicate palace maids flew over on red-crowned cranes and scattered 7-colored heavenly pills. Among the large number of rank 5 heavenly pills, there were rank 7 heavenly pills. This immediately caused another commotion. Those who managed to snatch rank 7 heavenly pills rejoiced, unable to stop smiling. Reporting. Qi Province's Marquis Qingping has sent a congratulatory gift, a 100,000-year-old herb king. Right in front of the wedding procession, a fast horse galloped over, and when it approached the procession, as it approached, the cultivator on the horse knelt on the ground and offered a gift to the feudal lords. After receiving the congratulatory gifts, the wedding procession continued forward, heading for the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. The heavenly book scholar said with some dissatisfaction, "He is not the crown prince yet, and he is already putting on an even grander show than Yan Huang's. To think that all the feudal lords are offering him gifts on the street." The 9th prince Wang Yan remained silent. Naturally, he understood the first prince's intentions. The first prince wanted to use this wedding to let the world know of his, Wang Fei's, power. Since ancient times, there had been very few people who provided timely help. However, there had never been a lack of people who added flowers to embroidery. With such momentum, the various feudal lords and noble clans who were wavering would definitely side with him. This would make his momentum truly unstoppable. It was easy to imagine that after this wedding, even the 8th prince and the 13th prince would be left far behind by the first prince. As for the other princes, there was no need to mention them. First brother is really going to become the crown prince. The 9th prince Wang Yan sighed softly. He did not have much of an obsession with the crown prince position. He only worried about the Azure Lotus Church behind the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, a demonic church with deep connections to the Xuewu dynasty. However, no matter how worried the 9th prince was, he could not deny that the first prince's limelight had already surpassed that of all the other princes. At this moment, the first prince felt very pleased with himself. Not only could he obtain the beauty of the top 10 headliner of Yen City, but he could also use this to build momentum. This was killing many birds with one stone. It could be said to be unparalleled. When the wedding procession stopped about 25 kilometers from the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, the first prince rode on the fire Qilin, the guardian divine beast of the nation. Under everyone's gazes, the first prince slowly advanced with the wedding procession amid the auspicious signs filling the sky. Finally, the first prince arrived at the very front of the wedding procession on a tall, handsome horse. Wang Fei took a deep breath and shouted in the direction of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, "Wang Fei of the Yanwu dynasty, invite headliner Ling Long to come out and be friends with me forever. We will not leave each other for generations to come. Present the betrothal gifts." Right after Wang Fei spoke, an old man shouted with great vigor. Many cultivators walked out of the wedding procession in an orderly manner. They lined up in rows in the empty space in front, a total of 10,000 people. Whoosh! The more than 1,000 people opened the brocade boxes in their hands at the same time. The treasures and treasures immediately dazzled everyone's eyes. The treasures and treasures formed a 7-colored light that illuminated half of the imperial city. Then, the light coalesced into a 7-colored rainbow bridge that pierced through the sky, extending all the way to the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. There are 10,000 kinds of treasures, all of them different. Every one of them is incredibly precious, worth cities. The first prince's betrothal gifts are truly extraordinary. It is not just extraordinary. It is simply rare in the world. Clearly, these treasures are extraordinary. This 7-colored rainbow bridge seems to light up the entire imperial city's sky. This is simply incredible. The instant the brocade boxes were all opened, all the cultivators in Yen City paying attention to this wedding set the entire imperial city abuzz. Boom! When the 7-colored rainbow bridge extended to the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, the hundreds of windows on the majestic top floor of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion opened. The entire Smiling Daughter Pavilion seemed to burn with a fierce flame. Just as everyone exclaimed in shock, a bright moon slowly rose from the flame mysterious phenomenon. Nearly in that instant, a white-clad woman flew out of each of the 100 windows. She held a basket in her left hand and a sword in her right. Flying together with the moon, she looked extremely beautiful under the moonlight, stunning the world. It's the Azure Lotus Fairy. To think that they all came out. This is too beautiful. I no longer have any regrets being able to witness this scene in my life. All sorts of praises rang out endlessly. All the cultivators who saw this scene were stunned by the group of white-clad women dancing under the moon. Before everyone's anticipation, headliner Ling Long walked out of that bright moon with a veil over her head. Then, she slowly landed on the 7-colored rainbow bridge. The rainbow bridge looked solid. A hazy moonlight covered headliner Ling Long. The instant she appeared, the entire world sank into absolute silence. It was like all the light in the world focused on her. Ling Long was like a fairy walking out of the moon palace, descending to the mortal world step by step. At this moment, Wang Fei, who originally only treated this as a show, felt a ripple in his heart. Light flickered in his eyes. Ling Long did indeed possess outstanding beauty and air. She was a peerless beauty, inspiring one's imagination. I want the world, but I cannot lack beauties. Wang Fei revealed a faint smile on his face. Only then can this be considered perfect. However, something strange happened just at this moment. Suddenly, a vast and majestic Swona sound rang out in this absolutely quiet world. This tune appeared very abruptly. There was no warning at all, no indication at all. Just like that, it was grand and majestic, containing a trace of solemnity and desolation. It ignited everyone's anticipation as it appeared abruptly. This was a tune that no one had experienced before. It appeared just like that, catching everyone off guard. Dang! 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 When the Swona sound turned deep and deep, the sound of metal clanging rang out. Lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness instantly surged in everyone's hearts. Soon after, many pipa sounds rang out at the same time. The fingers of the musicians moved quickly, and the pipa sounds were like 10,000 rivers moving at the same time, each wave louder than the last, each faster than the last. The lofty sentiments and hot-bloodedness in everyone's hearts seemed to turn into a river, gushing towards their hearts. This made their hearts pound endlessly, like they would leap out of their chests at any moment. Whoosh! Whoosh! Everyone's gazes immediately shifted away from the peerless Ling Long. No matter how reluctant they felt, they could not stop the hot-bloodedness in their hearts from gushing out. Only such a soul-stirring tune could make people's gazes shift away from Ling Long's stunning figure. The 100 Fairies of the Pear Garden. When the crowd saw the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden, they exclaimed in shock. However, what was even more unbelievable was that these 100 fairies of the Pear Garden were all wearing white mourning clothes, without exception. Today was the first prince's grand wedding. Why did the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden come in mourning clothes? The impact of this was like a horrifying wave, questioning everyone's heart. Chapter 2258. Unexpectedly, at the grandest moment of the wedding, when everyone was attracted by headliner Ling Long's beauty, the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden performed a song with a majestic aura that made everyone's blood surge. Wearing mourning clothes, the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden performed a song with a majestic aura that made everyone's blood surge. An invisible barrier stood between the ice coffin and this sun, splitting the sky into two extremes. When facing the laughing saber and sword performed by 100 soul treasures, they felt a mountain-like pressure and quickly retreated. The pressure stuck in their chests with nowhere to vent, making them feel incredibly uncomfortable. Just as the spectators discussed this, the veiled woman snorted coldly. That ice coffin under the barrier brought an unparalleled chill. Heavy snow drifted down from the sky, creating the mysterious phenomenon everyone saw. Before the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden's performance stopped, the mysterious phenomenon appeared again. Heavy snow drifted down from the sky. The white jade capital in the sky, the 5 cities in the 12 pavilions. Immortals touch my head, tying my hair and receiving eternal life. The veiled woman stopped walking and pulled up her veil, looking over with her pretty eyes. The first prince's expression remained calm. No fluster could be seen on his face. In mere moments, the snow covered the ground. A thick layer of silver instantly covered the surrounding 5,000 kilometers. Fortunately, the two sides only fought near the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Otherwise, half the city would have been torn down. Kong Feiyun, one of the few royal clan experts in the Imperial Ancestral Temple, was in the imperial capital. The veiled woman shouted, and the white-clothed women around her began to sway. They used sword lights to form a budding, powerful peony. When they spread their arms at the same time, it looked like the peony was blooming. Just as the flood was about to crush the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, a shout resounded in the clouds. However, this hot-bloodedness contained a trace of tragedy. The newcomers were actually the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden. Furthermore, all of them wore mourning clothes. The first prince had already set up many guards on both sides of the street. He had also hidden several experts. While everyone was caught off guard, the two's figures clashed, and their sabers and swords hummed. Fearful of Huai, he wanted to ascend to the sky and kill the group of immortals. Whoosh! Wang Yan's expression turned grave as he said, I know that. However, why did this golden crow come to my imperial capital Yan City? Furthermore, it appeared at Big Brother's wedding in that ice coffin. He took off his hood, pushed through the crowd in front of the window, and looked up at the sky. The 100 fairies of the pear garden were already arriving at the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Before the 100 fairies of the pear garden could answer, they saw the flood of people arriving at the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. That is. Wang Yan was stunned, feeling some disbelief. How terrifying. A battle between peak sovereign emperors is probably only at this level. Countless petals fell from the sea of flowers that covered Yen City. It was like a storm, densely packed and falling towards the 100 fairies of the pear garden. This caused all the swordsmen within 10,000 miles to raise their eyebrows. High up in the sky, in the distant streets, a piercing light lit up the sky as if two suns had appeared in the sky. What were they here for? No one knew, but they were definitely not here to congratulate him. So. Clang. The newcomer showed a calm expression on his face. He held a sword and stood on flowing light, looking like an immortal as he soared through the air. The 100 fairies of the pear garden, who were still 50 kilometers away, were immediately ambushed. In the pavilions on both sides of the street, a horrifying sovereign emperors might spread out from this person. This person was actually a terrifying six-vein sovereign emperor expert. This sword strike scattered the various mysterious phenomena, shocking the surroundings. Such a scene looked incredibly horrifying, eliciting startled cries. The genuine fairy basket in Wang Yan's hands suddenly flew out, and countless flowers flew out. A sea of flowers covered Yen City, covering the sky and sun. This superior grade soul tool that had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years erupted with its startling might and pressure. The fight between the two quickly reached a startling level. Gasp! Just as everyone cheered and sighed that this sword finally arrived, a saber light appeared in this shocking world. A saber light appeared, and a saber hum tore through the clouds, turning the world black and white. Aside from the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, all the other buildings within 5,000 kilometers collapsed, turning into rubble. Just as the flower petals filling the sky were about to swallow up the 100 fairies of the pear garden, the music changed wildly. This was a poem, a legend. It was grand and imposing, shocking everyone and making their blood surge. An old man dashed out from beside the first prince and bellowed. The 9th Prince Wang Yan revealed a confused expression in the pavilion. What's going on? Are the 100 fairies of the pear garden going to rebel? Now, it suddenly started snowing heavily, and the coldness of the snow could be felt. This chill made many of the people with high cultivations in the imperial capital Yen City shiver from the cold. Sword lights spread out, sweeping out in all directions. These thousands of sword lights shattered the scattered mysterious phenomena. There seemed to be an ice coffin hovering under this sun. There was no need to report. With the first prince's cultivation, he could clearly see the scene in front. The 100 fairies of the pear garden moved like a hot knife through butter. The ensemble was like 10,000 rivers flowing together, appearing unstoppable. A figure in colorful clothes soared into the sky from the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. It was the Smiling Daughter Pavilion's pavilion master. She held a sword in one hand and the authentic fairy basket in the other. On the Rainbow Bridge, headliner Ling Long instantly paled. Her body even wobbled somewhat. The 100 fairies of the pear garden, Suyi, remained calm in the face of danger. She pressed her index finger on the zither strings and started to vibrate endlessly. Immediately, the tune of the ensemble changed. The heavenly book scholar at the side said softly, "Your Highness, that is the golden crow holy beast. There is no need to doubt it. However, this holy beast is still young. It is not as scary as the legends make it out to be. However, it still cannot be underestimated." All the cultivators in the imperial capital Yen City were startled. The two sides had only exchanged blows for a moment, but they already caused huge destruction. Ling Long, who was on the Rainbow Bridge, felt her heart skip a beat. The uneasy mood that she had been feeling for the past few days reached its peak at this moment. The flute music, the zither, and the pipa changed. Rumble. At the same time, miserable cries rang out. These were the guards of the 100 fairies of the pear garden, who had charged over. Before the guards could get close, the sound waves shattered their internal organs. They bled out of their 7 orifices and died, a cruel sight to behold. The instant Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun passed each other, they exchanged glances and smiled. "Your Highness, should I make a move?" Boom! Immediately, a sword intent tore through the air like a rainbow. All the elegance of the world seemed to focus on this sword light. Many cultivators wearing battle armor leaped out and drew their weapons. Surging with killing chi, they charged at the 100 fairies of the pear garden. Azure water, orange light fills the clear sky, Linglong Pagoda's full moon hangs. Under the lead of the veiled woman, all the azure lotus sword immortals danced in the air. Just at this moment, a flash of sword light appeared in the sky, appearing at the perfect time. This sword light appeared when everyone's blood surged and their chests felt blocked, but they had nowhere to vent it. The 100 fairies of the pear garden. You are seeking death. To think that you dare to cause trouble at the first prince's wedding. It's Kong Feiyun, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Senior Kong. With Senior Kong around, the 100 fairies of the pear garden should not be able to cause much trouble. Falling dust peony, falling petals profusion. The vast and unrivaled 100 fairies of the pear garden faced resistance for the first time. Su Yi, who was playing the zither, leaked out a corner of her lips, and her complexion paled slightly. The black-clad Kong Feiyun behind her said sullenly. In an instant, snow covered the imperial city. Everyone who paid attention to this wedding in the imperial capital Yen City revealed confused expressions. They could not understand what was going on. Great ripples appeared in the air, appearing boundlessly strange. They were waiting for a sword, waiting for a sword that could save the world, waiting for a sword that could clear everyone's hot-bloodedness and impulses. A bright light shone above the barrier, illuminating the 9 heavens. The azure lotus sword dance and the 100 fairies of the pear garden actually clashed. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, who could have imagined that the sound that contained Emperor's might and soul energy? It was like mud falling into the sea, instantly vanishing, not hindering it at all. In the blink of an eye, everyone was thrown off their feet. The majestic procession was thrown into chaos. Bang! The swaying sword lights layered over each other, appearing dense and illusory. This sight amazed everyone. Above the clouds and under the bright moon, the dreamlike dance looked unparalleled, shocking the world in the snowstorm. Ice coffin. Azure lotus sword dance, unparalleled in the world. Even a peak sovereign emperor would not have an advantage when fighting with the azure lotus sword in the imperial capital. If the azure lotus sword fell, the 100 fairies of the pear garden would suffer severe injuries, even dying on the spot, given the might of the authentic fairy basket. However, the 100 fairies of the pear garden played an unprecedented piece. The music was ear-splitting. Despite the immense pressure, the 100 fairies of the pear garden played an unending tune, not pausing at all. The 100 fairies of the pear garden's thunderous voice contained the sound of the great Tao. They wanted to use their cultivation to scatter the laughing saber and sword that the 100 fairies of the pear garden played. A moment ago, the weather was still very good. The sun shone brightly in the blue sky. The 100 fairies of the pear garden held their soul tool instruments, wearing mourning clothes. They showed no expression as they focused on playing their instruments. Your First Highness, the situation is not good. The 100 fairies of the pear garden are actually holding soul tools. More than 1,000 of the Divine Guard's brothers have died. The 3 sovereign emperor leaders are already severely injured. Bang! However, what's going on with the ice coffin below? A melodious hum rang out, accompanied by the 100 fairies of the pear garden's wildly changing music. It scattered all the incoming flower petals and soared into the clouds without losing any momentum. Everyone, don't panic. The wedding will continue. It is just a group of women. They will not be able to disrupt the first prince's wedding. The nearby pavilion seemed to have been crushed by a torrent and collapsed one after another. The spectators fled in a fluster. They had not expected the 100 fairies of the pear garden to work together and erupt with such horrifying might. It looks like many people do not want the first prince's wedding to proceed smoothly. The white-clad women holding swords in the surroundings sang in unison, dancing with the veiled woman in the center. It was at least 100 miles away. However, before the person arrived, his voice arrived first, attracting everyone's attention. They could bring out the dynasty's holy might to its limits, making them unrivaled among great perfection's sovereign emperors. The hot-blooded spectators felt their hearts clench, feeling an impulse. So cold. So cold. When the fire Qilin caught the fire Qilin in his hand, he frowned slightly. It's snowing. The fire Qilin, the divine horse guarding the fire Qilin, neighed for some reason as if it encountered a strong enemy. This startled Wang Fei, who was on the fire Qilin's back. He quickly tried to comfort the fire Qilin. However, when he looked down, he saw a few snowflakes drifting down. Heavens! What am I seeing? The festive atmosphere of the wedding vanished. Pooh, damn it! Why did it suddenly become so cold? Ah! Everyone, quickly look. It's snowing! It's snowing! The Golden Crow Holy Beast. That is the Golden Crow Empire's holy beast. It turns out that it really exists. I always thought it was just a legend. A general knelt in front of the fire Qilin, his forehead covered in sweat as he spoke in a trembling voice. From a distance, the 100 fairies of the pear garden were still very far away. In the next moment, the generals pushed off the air at the same time. One saber and one sword charged towards the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion without hesitation. Did you all notice that the Yen Emperor has not made a move yet? The other peak factions that can stop this storm have not made a move either. Something seems strange here. Flower petals fell from the sky. Each petal was like the scythe of the Grim Reaper. No one could stop them from falling. Before the person arrived, the sound wave arrived first. Immediately, celestial music spread out, boundlessly vast. Just as the petal was about to swallow up the fairy maiden pavilion, a sword broke it. It was like an immortal descending to the world and bestowing supreme divine power on her. This was to prevent people from causing trouble. Furthermore, the immortal had issued a kill order beforehand. No matter who dared to cause trouble at the wedding, they would all be killed without mercy. The other musicians all suffered significant injuries. The first prince's expression turned extremely sullen. This was especially so when he saw the ice coffin in the sky. The first prince sang, and the surging flood materialized by the laughing daughter's saber and sword immediately showed 10,000 mysterious phenomena. Pu Ci. Although the first prince's voice did not have the expected effect, the name of this old man startled everyone. When the saber and sword clashed, they did not fight for victory or glory. They fought for the fate of the mortal world, for lofty aspirations and hot-bloodedness. Chapter 2259. Afraid of Huai's heart soaring, wanting to soar to the sky and kill immortals. The instant Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun clashed their sabers and swords, breaking the strike of the genuine fairy basket, they each turned into a beam of rainbow light. One saber, one sword, and one saber, they headed for the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Up in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, the veiled woman showed a slightly unsightly expression. Unexpectedly, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun broke the peak strike of the genuine fairy basket. However, the veiled woman did not have much time to lament, as Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun arrived before her in an instant. Peonies bloom, and spring fills the world. The veiled woman shouted again. The sea of flowers covering Yen City spun continuously with the Smiling Daughter Pavilion as the center. The surrounding white-clad women continuously danced around the veiled woman with their swords. The Azure Lotus Sword Immortals executed their powerful sword dance again, looking like an immortal flower spinning quickly. Dang! 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 The sword dance blocked Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun, preventing them from getting close. The two turned into two beams of rainbow light, continuously attacking the group of Azure Lotus Sword Immortals. In that instant, tinkling sounds filled the air, echoing endlessly and resounding in the clouds. From the outside, it looked like a peony blooming at the top of the smiling daughter pavilion, stirring up a sea of flowers. The two beams of rainbow light surrounded the peony, continuously turning mysterious phenomena in the air. However, they could not penetrate it. After stabilizing the situation, the veiled woman shouted angrily and activated the genuine fairy basket again. A tornado made of flower petals surged over, forcing back Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. Below, Su Ye's expression changed slightly when she saw the situation. The 10 fingers crisscrossed, and the zither music changed again. The other women moved with it. Immediately, the tune sounded like a clear spring in the mountains. Flowing water struck rocks, reverberating endlessly and looking as gentle as jade. The zither infused Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun with tangible energy. Their divine energy and soul energy soared rapidly. It was so much so that one could see with the naked eye that wisps of spiritual light formed by the tune entered their bodies. Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun had grave expressions on their faces as they looked at the tornadoes formed by the sea of flowers. Within the tornado, the veiled woman and green lotus sword fairy hid within it. Using the sword dance to activate the tornado, it violently attacked. On the surface, the two of them seemed to be quite relaxed, but in reality, they were facing an enormous pressure that outsiders did not know about. Even though the 100 fairies of the pear garden were continuously injecting spiritual energy into it, it was not enough. However, the tornadoes formed by the sea of flowers could only retreat step by step. If it were an ordinary sovereign emperor, they would have been smashed to death by this storm in just one exchange, torn to shreds. Xiao Chen, with our strength, we can't break through this sea of flowers by ourselves. Xiao Chen, who was brandishing his saber and fighting against the tornado, heard Chu Chaoyun's voice. He was referring to the sea of flowers, not the tornado in front of him. Indeed, while it looked like there was only one tornado, the true source of this tornado was the entire sea of flowers covering the imperial capital. The entire sea of flowers covering the imperial capital came from the power of the genuine fairy basket. It was already a peak superior grade soul tool. Furthermore, the many azure lotus sword fairies worked together to drive it, bringing out the fairy basket's might to its limits. If not for the 100 fairies of the pear garden support, the two would not be able to last one exchange against this tornado. The azure lotus sword fairy took the initiative to attack. She stirred up the sea of flowers and materialized the tornado, bringing out the true fairy basket's might to its limits. The storm slowly surged forward. The 100 fairies of the pear garden relied on Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun to hold on. If Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun could not hold on, the 100 fairies of the pear garden would not be able to escape destruction. The reason was that the soul tools of the 100 fairies of the pear garden were slightly inferior to the original fairy basket, which had been passed down for a long time. What do you think? One more dance. We need to bring out the laughing saber and swords might beyond normal before we can break this tornado. After that, we need to take down that veiled woman in one go. Otherwise, we do not stand much of a chance of victory. All right. Xiao Chen did not hesitate, choosing to trust Chu Chaoyun unconditionally. The two exchanged glances. Immediately, a kind of tacit understanding passed through each other's hearts. A clash of sabers and swords required extremely high tacit understanding for perfect execution. Such tacit understanding could only be achieved by trusting one's life and death to the other. Everyone watched as the azure lotus sword fairy pushed Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun back like a hot knife through butter. The two of them suddenly made an action that shocked everyone. At the same time, they stopped using the weapons in their hands to block the tornado. Just as everyone cried out in shock, the tornado looked like it would swallow up Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. Then, Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun turned into two beams of rainbow light again, clashing with this tornado. The two brought out their saber Great Dao and sword Great Dao to their limits. Before the tornado formed by flower petals, the two's auras flourished. The instant they clashed, it even looked like the two had a deep grudge against each other. Such a scene was incredibly shocking. If one really wanted to kill or had a weaker tacit understanding, they would either die to the other party or the tornado. Dang! However, when the saber and sword clashed, accompanied by the music of the 100 fairies of the pear garden, it looked like the two were in a life-and-death battle. A vast aura that could shake the world erupted. The two vividly brought out the ancient contradiction of the clash of sabers and swords. At this moment, the two forgot everything else, only having each other in their eyes. Decades of life-and-death grudges and entangled fates perfectly materialized in this clash of sabers and swords. Furthermore, the two possessed outstanding talent in the saber Tao and the sword Tao. As the 100 fairies of the pear garden sang the laughter of the saber and sword, the world entered a profound state. Everything else in the world seemed to become a side character, just a stage for the two to clash of sabers and swords. It's done. Among the 100 fairies of the pear garden, Suye's eyes turned moist. The zither in her hand released a weak light. There was no need for her to do anything. As the saber and sword clashed, the aftershocks from the clash naturally played. The other women also discovered this scene in surprise. Then, they released their instruments. They allowed the aftershocks from the clash of sabers and swords to freely play the laughter of the saber and sword. Rumble. The instant the mysterious phenomenon appeared, the sea of flowers covering the sky of the imperial capital shrank continuously. The sea of flowers looked like a funnel, retracting into the authentic fairy basket at a speed that the naked eye could not capture. In the instant that the sea of flowers disappeared, the tornado suddenly dissipated. Dozens of green lotus sword immortals. The dozens of azure lotus sword immortals revealed their true forms and vomited a mouthful of blood, knocked back. How could it be like this? The veiled woman paled, and blood leaked out of a corner of her lips. This was completely unexpected. To think that the azure lotus sword immortals would lose to the 100 fairies of the pear garden, in such a sorry state before everyone. Now! Xiao Qian and Chu Chaoyun separated from each other again. Each of them transformed into a streak of light and charged toward the green lotus sword fairy. The moment the flower blooms, it illuminates 3 lives. Boundless chaos, heaven and earth sword dance. The two took advantage of the clash of the saber and sword to create their strongest momentum and unleash their killer moves. In an instant, saber light and sword shadows flashed, and green lotus sword immortals were cut down one after another. It was unknown if they were dead or alive. After a while, only 3 people remained on the roof of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Xiao Qian, Chu Chaoyun, and the veiled woman, who was kneeling on the rooftop with a sword and a saber on her neck. Snowflakes reappeared in the sky that was previously covered by the sea of flowers. Pa pa pa. Just at this moment, applause suddenly rang out. The first prince, Wang Fei, was riding on the nation's guardian divine horse, the Fire Qilin. He was alone in the ruins, clapping his hands as he walked out. Lord Xiao. Thank you for giving me such a big gift for my wedding. Thank you for your kindness. However, it wouldn't be good if someone died. You can leave now. Wang Fei said with an indifferent expression. As soon as he finished speaking, rumble. Rumbling footsteps resounded throughout the world, causing the entire world to tremble. Countless armored figures surged over from all directions, surrounding the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and the 100 fairies of the pear garden in 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside. The encirclement was airtight. Xiao Qian looked around. Banners fluttered, and people moved. This Wang Fei actually mobilized the entire divine guards while the 2 sides were fighting. I wonder if the 100 fairies of the pear garden still have the strength to fight and break out of my divine guard's encirclement. The first prince, Wang Fei, said indifferently as he looked coldly at the exhausted Su Yi and the others, speaking calmly. It's over. The first prince's move is truly unrivaled. He mobilized the entire divine guards. No wonder he did not make a move earlier. It turns out that he was preparing this trump card. This trump card is the first prince's true trump card. Although a small number of top-notch experts are very intimidating, they are not enough. Although the few peak experts are very intimidating, it will be somewhat difficult to surround Xiao Chen and the others. There will always be a chance to leave. Right now, the entire Yanwu dynasty's elite army has surrounded them. There is no chance for them to leave. Furthermore, there are the noble clan experts waiting outside. This is simply a flawless plan. No one expected the situation to turn around so quickly. Xiao Chen and the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden could not escape in the blink of an eye. However, after thinking about it, they felt that this was only natural. After all, this was the imperial capital, Yan City. If not for the other princes restraining the Yan Emperor, preventing him from making a move, this farce would have ended before it started. However, now that the first prince brought out his trump card, it was time for everything to end. Boom! However, something strange happened just at this moment. A terrifying killing chi suddenly appeared outside the city. That was the horrifying killing chi that could only be materialized when countless soldiers who had killed in hundreds of battles gathered together. The killing chi was like a strong snowstorm. The instant it arrived, the world seemed to turn into a cruel battlefield. A scarlet cloud streaked across the sky, looking like a sharp knife piercing through the sky and arriving in an instant. The person leading the group wore battle armor and rode a phoenix blood eagle king. He said, "Big brother, it is best not to go overboard with some things." More than 10,000 people rode phoenix blood eagles behind this person. They all showed no expression, looking like azuras that came out of purgatory. It's the Blood Eagle army. Why did the 9th Prince's Blood Eagle army suddenly appear? The Blood Eagle army's horrifying killing chi spread out, forcing the God's Will army to change their encirclement and retreat behind the first prince. Now, Xiao Chen, Chu Chaoyun, and the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden stood in the middle of the two armies. The trump card that the first prince was so proud of instantly crumbled, vanishing without a trace. Wang Fei's calm expression immediately turned enraged. "Ninth brother, do you know what you are doing? Even you want to oppose me?" Wang Yan retorted calmly, "Big brother, I should be the one saying that to you. Do you know what you are doing? Since an outsider has the courage to stop this wedding, all the more I should step forward. It is time for this wedding to end." Wang Feilai's expression turned uncertain. As he looked at the Blood Eagle army, he felt so angry that his chest heaved up and down. Previously, no matter what Xiao Chen did, Wang Feilai did not fear it at all. This was because Wang Feilai had the trump card of the Divine Will army. This army was made up of holy venerates. With the battle armor and the support of the dynasty's emperor's might, they could form battle formations. Even a peak sovereign emperor would have to retreat if they charged forward. However, now that Wang Yan appeared with the Blood Eagle army, the situation immediately turned against Wang Feilai. Wang Feilai knew that many princes were waiting in the dark to see him make a fool of himself, not wanting his wedding to proceed normally. If this dragged on, when these people stepped forward like Lord Jiu, the wedding would be ruined. However, Wang Feilai could not think of a good solution right now. Wang Feilai still had several trump cards that he could use. However, this involved the Xuewu dynasty, the Black Lotus Church, and the Azure Lotus Church, so he could not bring them out in the open. "Big brother, how long are you going to remain stubborn? Just give up." Wang Yan advised again from the Phoenix Blood Eagle King's back. The entire Blood Eagle army took advantage of the situation to press forward. Who dares to take another step forward? However, just at this moment, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly rang out. A sword move appeared with this voice. The Blood Eagle army, which had just taken a step forward, was forced back. Several Phoenix Blood Eagles shrieked in shock as they were forced back by this sword move. One person and one sword forced back an army. A figure slowly descended from the sky and hovered in the air. As this figure stood in the air, he raised his eyebrows and looked at the Blood Eagle army. In that instant, several warriors on the Blood Eagle Kings felt a sword intent attack them. Blood leaked out of their mouths as they soared into the air and continuously retreated. Even the 9th Prince Wang Yan was no exception. With just one glance, this person nearly defeated the entire Blood Eagle army, reducing them to a sorry state. Who is this person? How can he be so strong? Such horrifying combat prowess completely surpassed everyone's understanding, so they all looked over. When everyone clearly saw the appearance of this person, they all turned pale, somewhat speechless. It was that person who had always existed in the legends of the imperial capital Yen City. To think that he appeared at this wedding and stood on the first prince's side. Ha 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 ha. How mighty. Su Hanshan, come and try attacking me. Just as the cultivators of the imperial capital Yen City were about to cry out in shock, a beggar walked out of the snowstorm and spoke with a smile as he looked at the sky. This call of Su Hanshan scared many people out of their wits. Unexpectedly, someone dared to directly address the sword by its name. His tone was filled with mockery. Chapter 2260. How awe-inspiring. Su Hanshan, come and try attacking me. The incredibly sloppy-looking beggar appeared out of nowhere in the rubble of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion. Then, he stood on a piece of rubble and looked up. No matter how one looked at it, such a person did not look like an expert. However, this beggar just stood up and smiled as he looked at the sword god in the sky. He directly addressed the sword god by name, Su Hanshan. Who was Su Hanshan? Probably every cultivator in the imperial capital Yen City had heard of his name. When he was very young, his elders had told him about his deeds over and over again. Su Hanshan was the pride of the Yenwu dynasty, a living legend. His name resounded like thunder, but few people had seen him in person. However, the moment he appeared, he hugged his sword and raised his eyebrows, scaring away the Blood Eagle army. There was no need to guess his identity. Aside from the sword god, Su Hanshan, no one else in the imperial capital Yen City possessed such strength. Many people had seen his portrait before. However, when they saw his true appearance, they did not dare to cry out, fearing that they would profane this person. This was especially so for the swordsmen present. They were already incredibly excited. Just seeing him once made their blood surge. Several people even knelt and worshipped him, all because he was the sword god, Su Hanshan. Everyone thought that the first prince's wedding would be settled after the sword god appeared. Who could have imagined that a beggar would appear out of nowhere and call out the sword god's name in a carefree manner, not showing any fear? Who is this beggar? He even dares to call out the sword god's name. Is he tired of living? Damn it! He is simply profaning the sword god. Some people did not understand, and some were upset. However, Su Hanshan did not make a move. He once said that no one dared to take a step forward. In that instant, no one dared to move. Su Hanshan's gaze forced back the entire Blood Eagle army. However, when this beggar appeared, Su Hanshan did not make a move. The strangeness of this immediately inspired speculation. At the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion, Xiao Chen, who already despaired, immediately felt some hope when he saw the beggar appear. However, he found this inconceivable, too shocking. The other party was Su Hanshan, the sword god Su Hanshan. What gave the beggar the confidence to stand out? You are here to join in the excitement as well. However, something even more inconceivable happened. Su Hanshan actually attacked the beggar. His tone was as if he was talking to someone of the same generation, and it instantly caused an uproar. This beggar was actually old friends with Su Hanshan. You can join in, but I can't. Hee, if we're talking about connections, I'm more involved than you. Originally, I didn't want to interfere in this matter, but since you've come out regardless of your status, it would be too heartless of me to not show myself. The beggar covered his face with his hands and combed his messy hair. He revealed a dirty face, but the smile on his face was clean and pure. It made people feel at ease, like a spring breeze caressing their faces. No one would have thought that this was the smile of a beggar. When Xiao Chen saw this scene, his heart immediately trembled, and his expression changed slightly. This smile. The first time he saw this beggar, he felt that this beggar's smile was somewhat familiar. It was exceptionally clean. But at that time, he didn't have time to think too much about it. Today, He saw that smile again in this kind of situation. A name immediately appeared in Xiao Chen's mind, and he could not help feeling shocked. You know who he is? Chu Chaoyun asked when he noticed the strange expression on Xiao Chen's face. Xiao Chen nodded. I know. If I'm not wrong, he is from the same place as you and me. The Kunlun realm? Yes. A bright light flashed in Chu Chaoyun's eyes as he looked at this beggar. He simply could not believe that this beggar was the person Xiao Chen mentioned. I couldn't defeat you 100 years ago, and I probably can't defeat you now either. What do you want? Speak. Su Hanshan said calmly with an indifferent expression. That might not be the case. I have not improved at all in the past 100 years. You can try drawing your sword. The beggar's smile remained the same as he said softly. Whoosh! The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Many people were even more stunned by Su Hanshan's words. It turned out that Su Hanshan was not just an old acquaintance. The two even fought 100 years ago, and Su Henin did not win. It's him. I know who he is. It's the Spring Snow Bladesman, Pan Huang. The bladesmen present connected Su Hanshan's words and guessed the beggar's identity. The Spring Snow Bladesman, Pan Huang. This was another legend, a bladesman whose name resounded like thunder but faded from everyone's sight long ago. Pan Huang's deeds were no less legendary than Su Hanshan's. Instead, he was even more legendary. Who could have imagined that the first prince's wedding would first cause the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden and the Azure Lotus Sword Immortal to fight? Now, it was even more exaggerated. Two legendary figures actually appeared at the same time. The clash between Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun between the saber and the sword was about to happen in reality. Su Hanshan, the strongest person of the sword Dao, and Pan Huang, the strongest person of the saber Dao. Just thinking about the clash between the two excited everyone. However, everyone was very clear that Su Hanshan and Pan Huang would definitely not fight. Even if they did, they would not do it in the imperial capital, Yen City, with so many people watching. However, Pan Huang's words, "You can try drawing your sword," still filled everyone with anticipation. What if he really drew his sword? Su Hanshan stared at Pan Huang and said sullenly, "There is no need. Either I don't draw my sword, or once I do, even if it is life and death, victory will be decided." Pan Huang smiled faintly and said, "Su Henin, in that case, there is indeed no need for you to draw your sword. Didn't you see the clash between the saber and the sword of the two little fellows earlier? What we are fighting for is not victory or defeat, not glory or disgrace, but the fate of the mortal world." Su Hanshan showed an indifferent expression. You have your Tao, and I have mine. In my heart, the sword will always reign supreme. My heart for the sword has never changed, not even for 1,000 years or 10,000 years. The beggar no longer tried to persuade Su Henin. He said sullenly, "Very well. In that case, I won't speak nonsense with you. Neither of us need to make the decision for this wedding. Let her make the decision." Pan Huang pointed at headliner Ling Long, who was on the rainbow bridge in the sky. The first Prince Wang Fei's expression changed slightly as he said, "No way. This is my wedding. I cannot allow others to make the decision for me. Is it your place to speak? Not even if your father came." Scram! The beggar roared. This was the first time Xiao Chen saw the beggar, who had a frivolous smile. A saber light seemed to flash in the beggar's eyes. When the beggar swept his cold gaze across, the Divine Guard's army was struck by a saber and knocked back 50 kilometers. In that instant, a vast crowd surrounded Wang Fei. When he looked up, he saw that he was the only one left riding on the flame Qilin. The army that had been surrounding him a moment ago was swept away like trash. Fear flashed in Wang Fei's eyes. He wanted to check if he was injured or not. However, when he saw the beggar's gaze, he did not dare to act rashly. Su Hanshan remained expressionless, acting like he did not hear anything. After a while, he looked at Ling Long and said, "You make the decision." Whoosh! After obtaining Su Hanshan's approval, Ling Long did not give Wang Fei another look. She directly landed before Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun. Ling Long glanced at the veiled woman coldly before looking at Xiao Chen. Her voice trembled as she said, "Lord Xiao, that ice coffin in the sky." Xiao Chen did not say anything, only nodding silently. Boom! Ling Long immediately felt like she had been struck by lightning. Indeed, this was the worst possible outcome. Ling Long, listen to me. He is already dead. Don't overthink it. Since you are the one making the decision now, just agree to the first prince's request. In the future, when he ascends to the throne and becomes the Yan Emperor, you. The veiled woman grasped this opportunity, wanting to win Ling Long over and make the right decision for her. Bang! However, right after Ling Long spoke, a short sword flew out of her sleeve and pierced the veiled woman's mouth the moment she opened it. You promised me that you would protect his life. Ling Long's expression turned frosty as she looked at the veiled woman coldly, not showing any pity in her eyes. Xiao Chen looked at the veiled woman, who was already dead. Then, he moved the saber away from her neck and said, "Headliner Ling Long, my little martial nephew is already dead. However, that beggar uncle brought him an ice coffin to protect his soul and prevent it from scattering. It can extend his life. Perhaps he will wake up one day. I want to leave this place with him. Can you bring me away?" Ling Long sounded fatigued. There was no sorrow or pain in her eyes, but it made one's heart ache. "Sure. I'll get the golden crow to bring you away." Before everyone's eyes, headliner Ling Long soared into the sky and mounted the golden crow above the clouds. Then, she left with the ice coffin. From start to end, Ling Long did not even look at Wang Fei. Wang Fei, who was on the fire Qilin, flushed. He felt like someone had slapped him swollen. To think that he could not even defeat a dead person. On the day of his wedding, a dead person snatched away his bride. This was definitely the greatest joke since the establishment of the Yanwu dynasty. Chapter 2261. The first prince watched helplessly as his bride rode away on the divine bird, the golden crow. At this moment, many princes snickered in their hearts. The first prince knew that his father would not appear to uphold justice for him after such a huge commotion. He also knew who was the one who had done this. His father doted on little 13th the most. He refused to believe that little 13th did not do something this time. The 8th prince probably put in a lot of effort as well. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial patriarch still did not arrive. Barring any surprises, little 13th prince must have done something. However, the one that enraged the first prince the most was the 9th prince. To think that the 9th prince Wang Yan directly led the Blood Eagle army to Yan City, standing out to oppose him. If not for the Blood Eagle army putting the first prince in the most dangerous situation, Su Hanshan would not have appeared. If Su Hanshan did not show up, that Pan Huang would not show up either. However, there were no ifs in this world. Everything had already happened and could not be undone. The Smiling Daughter Pavilion's pavilion master died, and headliner Ling Long chose to leave. Only Wang Yan remained in the vast rubble. He was like a joke, receiving everyone's pity and mockery. This wedding caused a huge commotion. Practically everyone in the world paid attention to it. Everyone knew about it. The entire imperial capital paid attention to it. The 100 feudal lords and 18 noble clans all came to offer their congratulations. Wang Yan showed off his luck, appearing awe-inspiring. However, everything changed now. Wang Yan got slapped in the face again and again. In the end, he could not even compete with a dead man. Ling Long chose to leave with Ling Yu's ice coffin, not even willing to look at Wang Yan. The country and beauty became nothing. Su Hanshan looked around. However, he did not look at the dispirited Wang Fei. Instead, his gaze fell on Su Yi. Whoosh! Su Hanshan's figure flashed, and he appeared before Su Yi. After some thought, he asked, "How have you been?" Su Yi trembled slightly. Unexpectedly, the godlike old ancestor of the Su clan, Su Hanshan, still remembered her. I'm fine. Su Hanshan said calmly, your father has always missed you. Go back with you. My Su clan's bloodline flows in your veins. Your talent should not be wasted. Su Yi immediately felt angry in her heart. It turned out that he had taken a fancy to her talent. She immediately said in a sullen voice, thank you, clan ancestor, for your concern. In this lifetime, Su Yi will never return to the Su clan, much less meet that man who is worse than a beast. Seeing the undisguised disgust and hatred in Su Ye's eyes, Su Hanshan fell silent. He also knew about what had happened back then. However, a lady from a brothel would not have a good reputation. It would be better if Su Ye's father was not the family head. However, now that he had become the clan head, he definitely could not allow his mother to be the official wife anymore. Otherwise, how would the family head's face remain? Whoosh! Seeing Su Ye's attitude, Su Henin did not try to persuade her any further. Instead, he simply said, if you're willing, you can come back anytime you want. Upon seeing this, Pan Huang did not linger, leaving as well. With their current strength, they could practically come and go as they pleased in any forbidden area of the Great Thousand World. As for Xiao Chen and Chu Chaoyun, they did not have such strength, so it would be difficult for them to leave. The two leaped down from the top of the Smiling Daughter Pavilion and landed among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden. After Xiao Chen and Si nodded slightly, they arrived among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden and stood before a woman holding a bamboo flute. Xiao Chen performed a cupped fist salute and said, many thanks, holy daughter, for coming to help. I am filled with endless gratitude. That was right. The woman playing the bamboo flute among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden was the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter that Xiao Chen had sent a letter to. However, her face remained shrouded in a layer of fog, making others automatically overlook her. Furthermore, she hid among the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden, so she did not attract much attention. In fact, no one even knew about her. However, this was in line with the Holy Daughter's style. The Heavenly Fragrance Holy Land had always been neutral, not getting involved in any disputes. Coming to help was already the Holy Daughter's bottom line. Young Master Xiao is too polite. My Heavenly Fragrance owes you a debt of gratitude. How can I not come? The Heavenly Fragrance's Holy Daughter smiled faintly. She clearly stood in front of Xiao Chen, but she gave off the feeling of being 500 kilometers away, as distant as that. The Holy Daughter gave off a natural sense of distance, preventing others from getting close. Xiao Chen, the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarch's people are here. Su Yi said as she pointed to a group of black dots rapidly flying over from the distance. When Xiao Chen looked in the direction of Xiao Chen's finger, he saw the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs with extraordinary cultivations. Xiao Chen was not surprised by the appearance of this group of people. In fact, he even felt that they were a little late. Presumably, the prince, who was secretly helping, saw that the wedding had been destroyed. There was no need to continue helping to block the Imperial Ancestral Temple's patriarchs. Just let them come and cause trouble for Xiao Chen. So. In the blink of an eye, this group of people led by the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor appeared before Xiao Chen and the 100 fairies of the Pear Garden. Greetings, Patriarch. Xiao Chen cupped his hands and said. Lord Xiao, how impressive. Come with me. You are the Heavenly Alliance's envoy inspector, so it is not convenient for me to kill you. I will discuss this matter with your alliance master before deciding how to punish you. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor looked coldly at Xiao Chen, showing no expression on his face. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor did not give Xiao Chen a chance to explain, nor did he intend to waste his breath. Needless to say, after causing such a huge commotion, nearly tearing down half of Yen City, Xiao Chen had definitely caused a great disaster. No matter how good the reason was, there was no way to explain what happened before Xiao Chen. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor wanted to take down Xiao Chen, but Xiao Chen was not in the right. Even if he brought this matter to Hua Tianyang would not side with him. Xiao Chen looked around, hoping to see the beggar's figure. However, there was no trace of the beggar at all. If Pan Huang were here, the imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs would not dare to ask. However, Pan Huang clearly did not want to care about this matter. Since Su Han's Han left, the imperial ancestral temple's patriarchs left as well. Count me in. If you want to take him away, then take me away, Xiao Chen said as he stepped forward. Chu Chaoyun smiled faintly and stepped forward. The imperial ancestral temple's imperial ancestor focused his gaze on Chu Chaoyun. Then, he said, I advise you not to be a busybody. We are not seeking trouble for you on account of the universe origin sect. Don't go overboard. The imperial ancestral temple's sect master was well aware of Chu Chaoyun's identity and background. He was a Daoist of the universe origin sect. Although he was an accomplice to Xiao Chen, he was not the mastermind. Thus, he didn't want to ask too much about it. However, he didn't expect the other party to take the initiative to interfere. Count me in too. Whoosh! A petite figure flashed and appeared beside Xiao Chen. It was Ao Jiao, who had arrived with the golden crow. Sun Goddess. Senior, there is indeed nothing wrong with taking young Master Xiao away. However, since he was going to be punished, it had to be fair and just. The first prince killed young Master Zhao's martial nephew for no reason. He had to pay with his life. If young Master Xiao did not die, today's matter would not have happened. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter said softly as she walked over while holding her flute. Who are you? The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor was enraged. Each of Xiao Chen's friends had a greater background than the last. First, it was the Universe Origin sect's Daoist, Chu Chaoyun. Then, it was the Sun Goddess. Now, a mysterious woman appeared from somewhere. When the imperial ancestor took a few more glances and recognized the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter, his expression changed slightly. To think that it was the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter. I was blind earlier and was too rash. I did not recognize this lady as the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor had no choice but to suppress his anger and apologize while holding back his anger. It's fine. However, I still stand by what I said earlier. Young Master Xiao must have committed a grave mistake. There is no need to explain. However, this prince killed someone for no reason. We still have to give him a proper explanation. Otherwise, if we end up with an unfair punishment, that would be an even bigger joke. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter stood up as well. However, she was smarter than Chu Chaoyun and Ao Jiao. From the start to the end, she kept insisting that Wang Fei killed someone, not letting go. The people who stood up one after another startled the cultivators watching from all around Yen City. They had not expected Xiao Chen to have so many friends. Furthermore, each of them had a deep background. What was even more shocking was that even the Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter appeared. Bullshit. This prince did not kill Ling Yu. That person committed suicide. What does that have to do with me? Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter, although you are the holy daughter, you are just a woman in my dynasty. You speak without thinking and malign this prince. That is a heavy crime. The first prince Wang Fei said in exasperation. The first prince had already embarrassed himself. At this point, if he still could not take down Xiao Chen, it would be like having his left cheek slapped. It meant that after the left side of his face was slapped, the right side of his face was going to be slapped again. He couldn't stand it. The Heavenly Fragrance's holy daughter said coldly, "Is that so? In that case, do you dare to swear that if Ling Yu's death has anything to do with you, you will give up on entering the ancient Yen Emperor tomb?" Wang Fei felt stifled. How could he dare to make such a vow? He said angrily, "Humph. I can't be bothered to speak nonsense with you. Imperial ancestor, take down this brat. Disrupting the prince's wedding is equivalent to insulting the royal clan's dignity. He deserves death. May the Lord Buddha show mercy." This humble monk, Yan Chen, is here on my master's orders to capture Xiao Chen and bring him back to the hidden spirit temple for punishment. Just as the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor hesitated and the two sides entered a stalemate, a Buddhist proclamation rang out in the air. A Buddhist name rang out from nowhere, and a youthful monk turned into a beam of silver light and descended from the sky. Chapter 2262. This humble monk's Dharma name is Yan Chen. On my master's orders, I am here to bring Xiao Chen back to the hidden spirit temple to receive punishment. The instant the Dharma name rang out, a silver light tore through the sky. The light descended together with the voice. It was a young monk with red lips, white teeth, bright eyes, and a handsome appearance. He still looked like a child. This was clearly a young novice monk, but he addressed himself as a humble monk. This was a rather comical scene. Unfortunately, this little monk was simply too handsome. He gave off a rather adorable feeling. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor frowned and said, "Little monk, this is not a place you should be. Quickly leave." Yan Chen said gravely, "Greetings, Imperial Ancestor. This is the abbot's personal token, and this is my master's token, Su Yun's." Imperial Ancestor, please take a look. One was from the Hidden Spirit Temple's abbot, and the other was from the Venerable Su Yun. Imperial Ancestor. Anxiety flashed in the first Prince Wang Fei's eyes as he tried to advise the Imperial Ancestor not to care too much and directly take down Xiao Chen. Don't be impatient. Suspicion flashed in the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor's eyes as he received the two tokens. After a while, his expression changed drastically. The abbot's personal token stated that Xiao Chen caused havoc in Yen City at the foot of the Spirit Mountain, affecting several temples and destroying incense offerings. His crimes were unpardonable. Hence, the Imperial Ancestor sent Yan Chen to capture Xiao Chen and bring him back to the temple for punishment, cleansing his heart and cleansing his sins. The other token was the Venerable Su Yun's personal token, proving that the little monk's identity was real and that he was his disciple. The two tokens complemented each other. They were absolutely authentic and could not be wrong. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor wanted to find some mistakes but could not find any, so he could only return the token helplessly. Xiao Chen. You led the crowd to cause trouble in Yen City, destroying the Buddhist sect temples and injuring innocent pilgrims. You have committed grave crimes. On orders from my master, I have to capture you and bring you back to atone for your crimes. Yan Chen received the token and walked over to Xiao Chen with a grave expression. Then, he asked, "Do you admit to your crimes?" The bystanders felt somewhat embarrassed. Xiao Chen had caused such a huge commotion, nearly destroying half of Yen City. Many of the first prince's subordinates had died. Finally, the Hidden Spirit Temple wanted to take Xiao Chen away for destroying the temple and injuring pilgrims. On the surface, it looked like he wanted to punish Xiao Chen. In reality, he was clearly trying to absolve Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen indeed should not have destroyed the temple. After being taken away by the Imperial Ancestral Temple's Imperial Ancestor, who knew if Xiao Chen could return? The little monk appeared at the right time. Naturally, Xiao Chen had no reason to reject this favor. Pa! Yan Chen leaped up and ferociously smacked Xiao Chen's head. He said angrily, "There is no sincerity at all. You are really sinful." The slap stunned Xiao Chen somewhat. Then, Yan Chen quickly took him away, leaving behind a group of dumbfounded people. The sect Chen Yi Yan Xiao is Yan Chen. Yan Chen. Yan. 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 Chen. Yan. Yan Chen. Chen. Yan. Chen. You. Yan King. Only then did everyone startle to their senses. Then, they recalled the silver light that appeared when the little monk appeared. It really was the little demonic monk's silver saber. Imperial Ancestor, there might be a trap. That little demonic monk's silver saber has a bad reputation and is not well liked in the temple. How could the abbot hand such an important matter to him? The first Prince Wang Fei said seriously as a brilliant light flickered in his eyes. The Imperial Ancestral Temple's imperial ancestor reacted and looked around. However, Xiao Qian and the little monk were nowhere to be seen. Outside the city, Pa! 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 Xiao Qian continuously smacked the little monk's bald head. Then, he said softly, "You are so impudent. To think that you dare to hit Big Brother in front of everyone. Ouch! 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 Big Brother, stop hitting me." The little monk held his head with both hands as he dodged left and right, crying out in pain. Xiao Qian withdrew his hand and said, "Your token should be fake. Given how you are in such a rush to leave, it seems." Yan Qin smiled and said, "The token is indeed fake. However, the part about destroying the temple and harming the devotees is just something I made up. Master only wanted to meet you, so he got me to invite you over. Before I left the mountain, I did not know that you caused such a huge disaster. Hence, I could only make up a reason to bring you away." Xiao Qian laughed hoarsely. "You are rather smart. Let's go. I also want to take a look at the Hidden Spirit Temple." The top holy land of the Buddhist sects, the Hidden Spirit Temple, ruled over all the Buddhist sects in the world. Xiao Qian had a fate with Buddhism. This was especially so since Xiao Qian cultivated the Mahamaya abstinence violation saber technique, a Buddhist sect forbidden technique. Perhaps he could make some breakthroughs in the Hidden Spirit Temple. The two did not dare to linger for too long. They quickly rushed to Spirit Vulture Mountain outside Yen City. There were many temples on Spirit Vulture Mountain, giving off a Buddhist light. There were many devotees, all of them grand and magnificent. Even though such a huge commotion happened in the imperial capital, Yen City, there was still an endless stream of devotees. Among them, there were ordinary mortals, as well as martial artists with varying cultivation levels. There were both strong and weak people. Everyone was different. The only thing they had in common was a pious heart to Buddha. At the foot of the mountain, Xiao Qian looked at this sacred mountain from a distance. He felt the vast and deep power of faith contained in the mountain. That was a kind of power that was as vast as the sea, containing countless inheritances and opportunities. The endless stream of devotees accumulated the power of faith. The Buddha accepted the power of faith and enjoyed the incense. Then, it passed on to the devotees, forming an orderly cycle. This cycle repeated endlessly, accumulating endlessly. This resulted in the scene that Xiao Qian saw right now, vast and unfathomable. The sea of faith formed by the incense felt as weak and insignificant as an ant in the depths of it. Of course, ordinary people could not sense the profoundness of this. What they directly felt was the Buddhist light supporting them, calming their bodies and minds, making them even more pious. After walking along the mountain path for a while, Xiao Qian saw many temples along the way. These temples were hidden in the forest, burning incense and giving off a dense Buddhist light. This made Spirit Vulture Mountain look like it was bathed in Buddhist light. Walking in it gave off a wondrous feeling of entering a place of bliss. The colossal golden body of the Kasyapa Buddha stood at the summit of the mountain. A bright light shone behind it, guiding all the devotees down the mountain. Behind the Kasyapa Buddha were indistinct bodhisattvas and arhats. They looked dignified and divine, not to be profaned. I heard that the Hidden Spirit Temple is not among these mountains. Even if ordinary people searched the entire mountain range, they would not be able to find it. In that case, is it in the Buddhist light of the Kasyapa Buddha? Xiao Qian guessed that the Hidden Spirit Temple might be in the secret realm of the Buddhist light behind the Kasyapa Buddha. One needed a certain identity to enter. Big brother, you guessed wrong. The Hidden Spirit Temple is not behind the Kasyapa Buddha, nor is it in a secret realm. It is in this forest. Come with me. The little monk smiled mysteriously and led Xiao Qian into a secluded path. Although the path was hidden, one could discover it if one paid attention. The mountain path had not been maintained for a long time, looking like it had been there for many years. Even though the sky was already dark on the mountain path, it was still as bright as day when illuminated by the Buddhist light. After entering this ancient path, it was like entering another world. It was cold, desolate, and dark, but it seemed even more real. Beside the desolate ancient road, green pine trees were planted, swaying slightly in the wind. White moonlight sprinkled on the path. Aside from that, there was no other illumination. Xiaochen experienced a profound state. However, he felt suspicious. Could the hidden spirit temple be at the end of this ancient path? If that was the case, it would be rather simple. Although this place was desolate, if a believer wanted to look for it, they would definitely be able to find it. This was because there was no illusion formation or secret realm. It was just a simple ancient path filled with pine trees. Just as Xiaochen felt suspicious, a faint fragrance wafted over. Raising his head, he saw an ordinary-looking old temple 10 miles ahead of him. A few osmanthus trees grew in front of the temple. Under the white moonlight, the osmanthus flowers looked like they were bathed in a faint layer of silk. From 5 kilometers away, Xiaochen could clearly see the words, Hidden Spirit Temple, written on the temple door. It really is the Hidden Spirit Temple. Surprise flashed in Xiaochen's eyes as he muttered to himself, feeling somewhat incredulous. The pine trees face the ancient path, and the white moon covers the cold mountain. This winding path leads to the Hidden Spirit Temple. Suddenly, a soft voice came from behind. Xiaochen turned his head and saw a middle-aged man holding a folding fan with a sword hanging at his waist. This person walked with a majestic gait and extraordinary air. A sovereign's aura was hidden on his face. As he slowly approached, an overwhelming pressure pressed down. This person did not purposely hide this aura. Just as Xiaochen was about to use his dragon might to block, he discovered that the aura had already silently enveloped him. However, he did not feel any discomfort. Instead, it felt strangely harmonious. It was like he was in this aura. Young man, there is no need to doubt. This is the genuine Hidden Spirit Temple. Young man, there is no need to doubt. This is the genuine Hidden Spirit Temple, the person who arrived said softly as he flung open his folding fan. Xiaochen asked cautiously, which expert of the royal clan are you? This person's strength was unfathomable. His sovereign's might was much stronger than that of the many princes. Xiaochen had just caused a huge commotion in Yen City and got into a conflict with the royal clan's people. When he suddenly saw a royal clan expert, he could not help but be cautious. Who are you? Are you the Heavenly Alliance's Xiaochen? The Dragon Race's Xiaochen? Or is it the Bladesman Xiaochen who raged because of my martial nephew? The middle-aged man smiled faintly and countered with a question. While Xiaochen hesitated, the middle-aged man smiled and said, So, there is no need to mind who I am. Right now, we are just visitors heading to the Hidden Spirit Temple. After saying that, the middle-aged man headed straight for the temple without waiting for Xiaochen's reply. As Xiaochen looked at this person's back, he muttered, How strong. He gives the feeling that he is undefeatable. Isn't that obvious? He is the current Yen Emperor. Even foe gods might not be a match for him in the Yenwu dynasty's territory, what more big brother? The little monk said in disdain. This startled Xiaochen. Only now did he recall that the sword at that person's waist was exactly the same as the Yen imperial sword that appeared in the Smiling Daughter Pavilion back then. Chapter 2263. The Yen Emperor. The middle-aged man who just walked over was actually the current emperor of the Yenwu dynasty. The doubts in Xiaochen's heart cleared up. No wonder this person's sovereign's aura was 10 times, even 100 times, stronger than that of the prince's. No wonder this person's aura did not feel any discomfort after containing Xiaochen. Everything under the sky belonged to the emperor. As long as one was in the Yenwu dynasty, it was like one was in the other party's small world at all times. Furthermore, this small world had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. The 108 feudal lords, 3,000 noble clans, hundreds of sects, and the various factions attached to it would all invisibly increase the dynasty's luck and strength. Even Shao Chen himself would invisibly strengthen the dynasty's accumulations when he was in it. However, it was too insignificant and negligible. However, that might not be the case after a long time. Now that Shao Chen's old doubts were gone, new doubts arose. Earlier, Shao Chen nearly tore down a small portion of the imperial capital and caused a commotion at his son's wedding, turning him into a joke before the world. To think that the old man still had the leisure to come to this hidden spirit temple to offer incense and pray to Buddha. Even when the old man saw Shao Chen, he did not show any rage or murderous intent. Shao Chen could not figure out what he was thinking. Strange, Shao Chen muttered in his heart, feeling extremely confused. Come on, let's go. Don't just stand there like a fool. Even if he is the current Yan Emperor, he will not dare to do anything to you in this hidden spirit temple. Don't worry. The little monk quickly consoled Shao Chen, thinking that he feared the Yan Emperor and did not dare to climb the mountain. Shao Chen did not worry about his safety in the hidden spirit temple. He just felt some doubts, so he did not explain and let Yan Chen continue leading the way. After a while, they traveled 5 kilometers in an instant. The fragrance from before drifted over with the wind, faintly drifting over. When they arrived before the temple, the moonlight illuminated the osmanthus tree. However, they could not smell any osmanthus fragrance. The ancient road in the pine forest fills the cold mountain with white snow. The winding path leads to the hidden spirit temple. Shao Chen recited the poem that the Yan Emperor recited. As he looked at the simple signboard in front of the temple, he still felt some disbelief. To think that this place was the hidden spirit temple. Not to mention the majestic temples on the mountain, even the guest halls at the foot of the mountain were much better than this hidden spirit temple. Return to the natural state. Shao Chen's brows furrowed slightly. Returning to one's true nature was about being casual and natural. Deliberately making it so simple and crude would instead seem pretentious. Given the hidden spirit temple's status and strength, a grand and imposing temple made it seem more natural. Isn't this hidden spirit temple very hard to find? Why did the other pilgrims say that they couldn't find it anywhere? Could it be that this is some kind of forbidden area? Shao Chen asked, unable to suppress the doubts in his heart. The little monk smiled faintly and said softly, "This place is really not a forbidden area. When ordinary worshippers come in, the senior and junior brothers in the temple will also treat them with courtesy." He explained the Buddhist scriptures, served tea, and was very polite. However, do you think that these people really think that this is the hidden spirit temple? They probably just think that it is a temple with the same name. Don't overthink. I know you are very disappointed. However, this is really the hidden spirit temple. I grew up here, just like my family. I won't lie to you. Yan Chen's youthful face filled with smiles. He probably felt happy to be able to bring Shao Chen to his home as a guest. As Yan Chen entered the temple, other monks occasionally passed by. When these monks saw Yan Chen, they would respectfully greet him as Little Marshal Grand Uncle before quickly leaving. These junior brothers and senior brothers must have already experienced the little demonic monk Silver Saber's bad luck. Yan Chen felt somewhat embarrassed. Every time this happened, he would laugh loudly and quickly introduce the temple to Shao Chen, changing the topic. Void Cloud Hall. Shao Chen thought to himself when he saw the words on the courtyard wall after arriving at a backyard near the mountain. It is clearly a courtyard, but it is written as a hall. This is rather interesting. Shao Chen thought about how grand and majestic the Heaven Dragon Hall was. This courtyard before him could not compare at all. My master stays here. Come, I'll bring you in. When Shao Chen entered the courtyard, the ground was covered in fallen leaves. When he stepped on them, they rustled like he was walking on snow. Although the courtyard was simple and crude, it wasn't small. Just the adjacent wing rooms alone numbered quite a few. 2 people were currently playing Go under an old tree in the courtyard. One of them carried a sword. His facial features were sharp like they were carved by a knife. He looked extraordinarily handsome and gave off an extraordinary air. When Shao Chen looked carefully, he felt startled. Isn't this Su Han's Han, whom I just met? The person across from Su Hanshan wore embroidered robes. His sleeves looked as gaudy as a skirt. The skin on this person's face was smooth and tender, and his exquisite facial features formed a handsome face. However, this person did not give off a distant feeling. Instead, he appeared very gentle. Coupled with that smooth and tender face, he gave off a surprisingly gentle feeling. This person was currently hesitating, frowning slightly, not knowing where to place his ghost stone. Hey, why does this person feel somewhat familiar? However, I cannot recall where. As Xiao Qin pondered, that person raised his head and looked at Xiao Qin. Then, his frown relaxed, and his eyes narrowed as he revealed a smile. In that instant, it felt like winter had passed, and spring arrived quietly. A smile contains spring, but this spring is not that spring. It was a gentle spring breeze that melted the ice and snow. Hundreds of flowers bloomed in the spring breeze. Xiao Qin was stunned on the spot. His heart felt like it was in the wilderness. 10,000 horses were galloping and whistling past. It was like heavenly thunder rolling endlessly. This is Uncle Beggar. No, this is the spring snow bladesman, Pan Huang. These were two completely different styles. What was even more inconceivable was that the two seemed to have arrived at the hidden spirit temple one after the other. Little brother Xiao Qin, unexpectedly, you also came to the hidden spirit temple. When Pan Huang saw Xiao Qin, his eyes lit up, and he prepared to walk over. But just as he was about to get up, Su Hanshan's sword landed on his shoulder, forcing him back down. Hurry up and make your move. I want to have a better view. If you want to give up, admit defeat first. Su Hanshan said indifferently with a calm expression. Xiao Qin felt that the atmosphere was a little awkward and didn't know how to deal with it. Who are the two of you? Why are you in my master's courtyard? This is not a place where visitors can enter. Quickly leave. Quickly leave. Doubt flashed in the little monk's eyes. As he looked at these two strangers, confusion flashed in his eyes. The little monk immediately walked over with large strides, preparing to chase them away. When Su Hanshan and Pan Huang saw the little monk walk over, shock flashed in their eyes. Su Hanshan carefully put away his sword and gently leaped up. Before the little monk could approach, he landed on the wall. Pan Huang's figure flashed, appearing like he teleported to the wall. The two seemed to fear this little monk somewhat. It was like Pan Huang could see the bad luck the two carried and did not dare to touch him. What a fast movement technique! Yan Chen's eyes lit up as he continued to give chase. Don't be rude. Xiao Qin was about to remind Yan Chen when a shout stopped him. It was Venerable Su Yun. Xiao Qin had met Venerable Su Yun once at the Soaring Dragon Marquis's residence. The two could be considered to have met before. Master. Yan Chen leaped up and landed before Venerable Su Yun. Then, he pointed at Su Hanshan and Pan Huang and asked, who are these two? They are the abbot's honored guests. They are here to rest for a while. You startled them. Ha! Venerable Su Yun is joking. It can't be considered startling. Is this that child from back then? With one look, he truly lives up to his reputation. Pan Huang and Su Hanshan had already landed again. As they looked at Yan Chen, they showed curious expressions. That's good, then. Benefactors, please go about your business first. I have to entertain Benefactor Xiao. After some pleasantries, Venerable Su Yun led Xiao Qin into a tea room in the hall. Then, Venerable Su Yun personally brewed tea. Benefactor Xiao, how have you been? Looking at the time, it has been 10 years since we last met. Venerable Su Yun smiled softly as he served a cup of brewed tea. After receiving the teacup, Xiao Qin did not rush to taste it. After some thought, he said, many thanks for Venerable's help this time. Otherwise, we would have been in trouble. Since Su Hanshan and Pan Huang were both here, Venerable Su Yun was not as ignorant as the little monk claimed. You are too polite. However, since you are already here, you should stay in this hidden spirit temple for a few days. Even without this matter, I would like to invite benefactor Xiao to stay for a few days. Venerable Su Yun smiled faintly as he spoke unhurriedly. Xiao Qian entered deep thought. The other party should have other intentions. However, since Ran Wei said so, he would not ask further. At the same time, in the Hidden Spirit Temple's main hall, after the Yen Emperor offered incense alone, he looked at the Kasyapa Buddha image. Then, he picked up a bamboo lot and asked, "Is my lot good or bad?" Whether the Yen Emperor was willing or not, the result of the lot would implicate the entire Yenwu dynasty. It was unavoidable. The Hidden Spirit Temple's abbot, Su Yi, walked out from the side and received the bamboo lot. After a while, he sighed softly, "The worst lot." Chapter 2264. The worst draw. The Yen Emperor's elegant face changed slightly as he said softly, "Venerable, you are not joking, right? The worst draw. My Yenwu dynasty is flourishing with luck. For the past 500 years, I have worked day and night to expand my territory. Since I ascended to the throne, I have not lost a single inch of my territory. I even subdued several outer region great realms that the Xuewu dynasty controlled. The dynasty's luck fell to rock bottom in my hands, then returned to its peak. Now, everything is peaceful. How can there be such a thing as the worst draw? Since the Yen Emperor came to the temple to draw lots, he had to be planning the nation's luck. From the moment he ascended to the throne, his fate had become tightly tied to the Yenwu dynasty. The Yen Emperor's tone contained heavy dissatisfaction and some doubt. Venerable Su Yi said calmly, "May the Lord Buddha show mercy. A monk does not lie. Benefactor Wang, you took time out of your busy schedule to come here alone to offer incense and draw lots. I believe you must have sensed something. As the current Yen Emperor, you already come into contact with the Supreme Heavenly Tao. Your intuition is right." The Yen Emperor's expression turned grave. After some thought, he asked, "How severe is this bad draw?" Seeing nothing, Abbot Su Yi pressed his palms together and murmured softly. "Seeing nothing." The Yen Emperor muttered to himself. Then, his expression changed drastically. "Seeing nothing. Does this mean that the entire dynasty is going to be destroyed?" However, in the blink of an eye, he felt that this was somewhat impossible. The dynasty was flourishing now, with deep accumulations. If there was a great calamity, even if the dynasty's luck was damaged, it should not fall. However, when the Yen Emperor thought about how unsettled he had been for the past year, the shadow in his heart hard to erase. At the Yen Emperor's cultivation, he had the power of the dynasty's luck. His intuition for the heavenly Tao and fate was already very sharp. Such a situation could not have happened for no reason. However, the Yen Emperor could not accept the dynasty's destruction. The Yen Emperor's expression immediately changed, appearing conflicted. "Venerable, is there a way to resolve this?" A bright light flickered in the Yen Emperor's eyes as he revealed a hopeful expression. Abbot Su Yi shook his head and said, "Fate rises and falls. The cycle never ends. Everything in the world is destined. This is not your fault. The cause was planted 100,000 years ago. Then, someone forcefully stopped it 50,000 years ago. It is impossible for someone to stop it a second time." The Yen Emperor felt stunned when he heard that. He did not believe it, feeling that the other party was just brushing him off. 100,000 years was too far away. What time was that? That was still the era when the Black Dragon King wreaked havoc. How could the Yenwu dynasty's fate be decided 100,000 years ago? He stared at the other party and said, "Grandmaster, are you dissatisfied with some of the elders of the imperial family? Is that why you are unwilling to say more? In the past few years, I've actually been quite dissatisfied with the elders in the clan. In the past, I was restricted by the throne and couldn't do many things. Now that I'm about to abdicate, I can do whatever I want before I leave." Many of the older generation experts of the royal clan were dissatisfied with the Hidden Spirit Temple. They felt that they were always controlled by others. The Hidden Spirit Temple had deep accumulations, but the royal clan could not control it. They had tried to infiltrate it several times, but they had failed. Hence, the royal clan's older generation cultivators let the Pleasure Quarter alliance grow, using it to keep the hidden spirit temple in check. Needless to say, this strategy was very effective. In the past few thousand years, the influence of the Buddhist sects on the hidden spirit temple had decreased significantly. In the past, when Buddhism was at its peak, even the heir to the throne had to submit to Buddhism, requiring the hidden spirit temple to recommend him. Now, although the hidden spirit temple's influence was still significant, it could no longer compare to its peak. The Yenwu dynasty's royal clan was practically independent, unlike the Tianwu dynasty and the Xinwu dynasty, which were controlled by the Universe Origin sect and the Profound Heaven Holy Land. The Yan Emperor's words hinted to Abbot Suyi that as long as he was willing to help the Yenwu dynasty clear this calamity, the Yenwu dynasty would be able to return the Buddhist sects to their peak. It could allow the Buddhist sects to return to their peak. This was a huge temptation. Abbot Suyi shook his head and said, the cause and effect from 100,000 years ago was already set. Benefactor, there is no need to feel so conflicted. No one can avoid this calamity. The Yenwu dynasty cannot avoid it, the hidden spirit temple cannot avoid it, and the world cannot avoid it either. The cycle of fate never ends. What does the Yenwu dynasty count for before the world? Just treat it normally. The Yan Emperor felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He was stunned. He understood what Abbot Suyi meant. The Yan Emperor also knew that the cause and effect were set 100,000 years ago. Then, someone forcefully stopped it 50,000 years ago. Now, no one could stop it. What was going on? I understand. Goodbye. The Yan Emperor performed a cupped fist salute and took his leave. Before he left, he looked at the worst lot in his hand. However, he did not return it, keeping it with him. As the abbot watched the Yan Emperor leave, he sighed softly and withdrew silently. Inside the hall, the golden image of the Kasyapa Buddha shone brightly with a smile on its face. It was like it had seen through everything and was detached from it. Naturally, Shaoqin did not know what happened here. After Shaoqin tasted tea with Venerable Su Yun, he saw that Pan Huang was still under the tree. Before Pan Huang could play the ghost stone in his hand, sword god Su Hanshan was nowhere to be seen. Su Hanshan probably could not stand Pan Huang's shamelessness and could not be bothered to play anymore. Without the sword god around, it was much easier for Shaoqin to face Pan Huang. Without any hesitation, Shaoqin walked over with large strides. Little brother Shaoqin, you came at a good time. Help me see if this game can continue. When Pan Huang saw Shaoqin, he invited him to sit down with a smile. This form of address scared Shaoqin half to death. In the past, when he was still a beggar uncle, he naturally didn't feel uncomfortable calling him that. However, now that he knew that the other party was Pan Huang, how could Shaoqin dare to accept this form of address? In the Kunlun realm, Shaoqin had received the Saber Sovereign Medallion. It was also because of the Saber Sovereign Medallion that he comprehended the Saber Tao. Without this Saber Sovereign Medallion, it would be nearly impossible for him to surpass Prime and leave the Kunlun realm. Pan Huang was like Shaoqin's ancestral master. It was truly frightening for such a person to call Shaoqin little brother. Senior, please don't call me that. I really don't deserve it. Actually, I am also from the Kunlun realm. Senior Pan Huang should recognize this Saber Sovereign Medallion. After Shaoqin spoke, he took out the Saber Sovereign Medallion. When Pan Huang saw the Saber Sovereign Medallion, he did not feel surprised. He smiled faintly and said, "As you wish. However, I do not like others calling me senior. However, given your character, I believe that you will feel uncomfortable calling me big brother as well. I already felt the Saber Sovereign Medallion in your hand long ago. I almost forgot about it." After receiving the Saber Sovereign Medallion, Pan Huang revealed a reminiscing expression in his eyes. After some thought, he said, "Back then, it was really hot-blooded. For so many years. Nearly all the people I met from the Kunlun realm are still alive. It seems like you are the only one who obtained my fortuitous encounter and walked out of the Kunlun realm. Senior, what exactly is the relationship between you and my martial nephew? Xiaochen asked out of curiosity. At the mention of Lingyu, some regret flashed in Pan Huang's eyes. He said sullenly, I have been roaming the world for the past few years. A few years ago, I accidentally saved him in a forbidden land. I heard that he was Yi Zifeng's disciple, so I came to Yen City with him, intending to protect him. Unexpectedly, such a thing happened after I left for a while. This child is really unfortunate. It turned out that it was not that complicated. The reason was actually so simple. At the mention of Lingyu, Xiaochen could not help feeling sad in his heart. However, headliner Ling Long's final decision still gave Xiaochen some comfort. At the very least, it proved that bringing Lingyu to the Soaring Dragon Great Realm back then was not wrong. He did not love the wrong person. Do you know why the Hidden Spirit Temple's people sought you out? Since Ling Yu's topic was somewhat heavy, Pan Huang changed the topic after returning the Saber's Sovereign Medallion to Xiaochen. Xiaochen shook his head and said, I feel that Venerable Su Yun has something else to say. However, I do not know what the deeper meaning is. Pan Huang smiled and said, they probably want the old abbot to tell you that they sought you out for the ancient Yen Emperor tomb. The ancient Yen Emperor tomb? However, I already promised the 9th prince. Could they be preparing to support the 9th prince's ascension to the throne? Xiaochen asked, confusion flashing in his eyes. No, the Hidden Spirit Temple does not care who becomes the next Yen Emperor. They only care about the ethereal immortal palace. In reality, even if the Yenwu dynasty is destroyed, the Hidden Spirit Temple will not care too much, Pan Huang explained softly. However, this time, we have to pay attention to it. To think that the first prince allied with the Azure Lotus Church. If the ethereal immortal palace really appears and the wings of time lands in the Azure Lotus Church's hands, the Hidden Spirit Temple will not be able to sit still. A brilliant light flashed in Xiaochen's eyes. After some thought, he said, so, they want to work with me, at the very least, to prevent the wings of time from landing in the Azure Lotus Church's hands? Smart, Pan Huang praised softly with a faint smile.